Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 305, I think.
Girl, you know it's true.
I'm going to blame it on the rain. So Johnny and I just literally moments before opening up, we're having the debate every household probably had this week is how many hits exactly did Milli Vanilli have? And
I said they had really two hits. They had Blame It on the Rain and Girl, You Know It's True.
Clearly underselling them. Undervaluing them.
Not saying they didn't have other songs that crested the top 40, but those were the hits. Those were the two that everybody knew. The other ones were kind of like, you're like, See, I mean...
We're not going to argue about this now, but I will tell you, I beg to differ.
That's fine.
There were more than just those two. Like, Girl, I'm going to Miss You. So, anyway... Glad you guys get to be here to join us. That's how. That's
what we do before the show. I mean,
yes.
That's our prep. That is our prep.
As I was thanking everyone who had chimed in on my recent Facebook post, alerting me that there was a lip syncing controvery or a hoax about them. Yeah, I know, and I appreciate you guys for making sure I was aware of it. Yes, I very much knew. So we're here for 305. And as the title at one point said, Niko Castro, hopefully?
Maybe.
Niko may or may not catch up with us. It's not from a lack of effort on my end. And I know he's got so many fans and so many followers and is so beloved across the sport of disc golf. I reached out to him a full 23 hours ago and just said, hey, hope you can join us. I sent him a message on Instagram. I tagged him on Instagram in a separate comment. I sent him a Facebook message, which he's seen. I've sent him a text to his personal phone that I know is legit.
I could send a message to one of his 3 Skype accounts, and
that'd be funny. He's hanging out on Skype. That's where he does all his real communicating.
That's his social media right there. Like, dude, Skype's
so if he somehow finds us, Niko, we'd love to hear from you tonight. You've seen my messages. We'd love to hear from you, but...
he's ghosting you.
Yeah, he is. It is what it is, I guess. So maybe he's been practicing a putt all day. I don't know, and he still hasn't released it. We don't know. Either way, we're glad you guys are joining us tonight. We're going to have Danamite. He's also... he's a little more locked in then. He's just putting his one of his daughters down for bed, and we'll catch up with him. It's been not only a couple weeks, but also great to have... his perspective, I feel like, because, of course, he knows golf is just as well or better than most. But then he gives us that not quite on the road anymore perspective, probably consuming it from a social media standpoint, where I feel like I have a very skewed perception because I'm there and I'm in the moment and helping create some of the media. Johnny, of course, is creating different media in a different way. And I love hearing someone with the insight that that Dana has, as he's good friends with Kale and others from the property. I mean, Dana sponsored a basket.
First of all, a couple things. One, how come we weren't asked to sponsor a basket?
I think he just generically put it out there, and I'm guessing people jumped on it instantly. That's my understanding, because I would have given him money.
So would I, and
for as much as I stare at that guy, it feels awkward not paying him.
We all do. Well, if Kale, if there's an opportunity out there, let us know, because I must have missed that personally, because Smashbox would definitely love a basket out there. But number 2, I forgot. We were talking about Dana.
Of course,
Niko. Yeah. Oh, no, Kale. Kale has a lot of best friends, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems like everybody's like, my great friend Kale, my good friend. Like, that guy is...
He's
like,
beloved.
He is beloved. And I think his course this weekend, it was divisive online. I think that's a really good way to put it. It was divisive.
Yeah, and I think maybe what you're saying about that is overall people enjoyed, for the most part, the property and the aura and the atmosphere and the scenery and everything that it stands for and that he's working on. And, of course, it's still very, very fresh. And with that, some people are saying they wish it was a little more challenging because the nature of the holes that were played, at least for this event, for this particular layout, probably came across, and the scores are what...
Minnesota soft.
Yeah, the scores are what people are saying is maybe what was wondering, like, is it too easy for them? Or are these guys just so good when given these types of conditions and this type of golf?
Both. I mean, the course, you and I kind of had this brief discussion, I think, as to take hole 18. Great example. Is it a par 5?
It is listed as a par 5, correct?
No, I'm saying I know
is
that.
It? That's what
is
you're
it
asking.
Truly a par 5, though? I mean, when you have that many eagles on it, can you define that as a par 5? And then you have to look and ask yourself, who are we defining par for? Because if you look at the stats, I think you had said it averaged out to like a 4.6 or 4.8 even, maybe.
I think of something along those lines, yep.
But for our top 20 guys,
they're expecting birdie.
They're expecting birdie. That's
or they're expecting eagle. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, they're hoping eagle. They're expecting birdie, I think.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I bet you that averaged way closer to 4 for the top 20 than it did for the rest of the field. And this is an ever changing question, where do you define par? Do you define it for the entire field? Do you define it for our top guys? I think a lot of the divisiveness was some people loved the course. Some people thought it was great to be able to showcase these guys' distances, not really have to worry too much about OB unless you're Simon or Eagle, apparently, and just let them play without all the artificial OB. Some people turned around and said it was gorgeous, but it provided zero teeth. There was hardly any danger to get into. And I'm going to ride the fence on this one and say I kind of agree with both. Both points are valid, but I do think that this was a really great showing for a first-year course. This is a perfect example of let the players play this year, look at the results, take those results, and then hopefully be able to make some tweaks next year if you need to. Like, oh, we saw that maybe this basket can be tucked up here. Maybe we do add a little, I don't want to say artificial OB, but maybe we make the fairway inbounds and all the long grasses OB in certain spots, and just kind of bend and massage it that way.
Yeah, and of course, I think that we have to keep in mind that not only did this course nor event existed just a few months ago, and
Correct.
So clearly that is right there on the forefront when you're talking about the property, you're talking about the opportunity to even be there, to be having a high level of competition, to have an event on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. All of these things needed to happen, and the way that it was put together very efficiently and very quickly, hats off already just for that. That in itself,
Amazing.
Of course, is a huge compliment. So we certainly don't need any of the the hate inbox messages saying, "Hey, you guys are just totally underselling that didn't exist 2 months ago." We know that it didn't.
We know, and
we understand that.
I was flabbergasted by the quality of the look of that course. For as short of a time as he has had opportunity.
Of course.
I just keep thinking, if you can do that in 2 to 3 months, imagine what you can do in a year. Imagine the opportunity and the options and the bridges that will be built and the benches that are going to be there and just all the tweaking that can be done to that course, or changes. Maybe it's beyond tweaking. I don't know.
Well, and I know that there was a distinct effort to be playing with as much natural, obstacles and I don't know what the other word is, but keeping things as natural as possible without going to artificial OB and whatnot.
Yes.
And I know that was a large part of this. And now we can look at the numbers, and if the holes and the tees and the pins are all going to stay where they are for this course that's created for the highest level events, that's where they can start saying, okay, well, maybe on some holes we can tighten the OB, whether it's long grass or whether it's something that brings the some kind of OB into play more frequently,
or make the bunkers hazards, or anything along those lines. Well, we have Danamite here waiting in the Disc Baron Digital Green Room.
Yeah,
and I've had a couple conversations with Dan over the past day or two about his move and his internet and stuff like that. So let's catch up with Danamite and figure out what's going on.
Boom goes the Danamite.
Dana. How are you, buddy?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm glad to be here with you guys. I was kind of wrapped up with putting the kids to bed and got your messages and a little late and looked at my phone, and I'm glad that I was able to make it happen. Thanks for stalling for a couple minutes and chit chatting so I could get prepped.
You know, if there's one thing we can do, it's fill a little time. No, we're super glad that you could join us here, Dana. We know that we've been kind of in and out of having you, and as we're kicking back into regular season mode, I think we're going to have you, therefore, more frequently. So pretty exciting stuff this last weekend. I know you're good friends with Kale and are very familiar with a lot of the inner workings that have been happening for him in his life and, along with his business of Airborne over these last few years. So great to get some insight and some knowledge. Maybe you talked to Tall Paul Oman, possibly, who I know was there competing this weekend. I'm not sure if you got a chance to catch up with him. What did you hear and see and experience this weekend?
And caught nothing but good vibes coming from the preserve. I think, it's a beautiful property. It's a great story of how it all came together, and then just to be a course, to be two courses, and then also the story of how stepped up to hop on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, short notice. So just a lot of good vibes all around. The players got up to Minnesota, and some of them weren't able to make it to the DD Open, so it was kind of their first step back into competitive disc golf and seeing all the friends again, even though maybe you weren't supposed to be too close in the scheme of things, but to see each other and maybe give some air hugs or some elbows or fist bumps. So the vibes were feeling good out there from what I could tell, and then a lot of players stayed out on site all weekend. So kind of maybe that a little bit of that Maple Hill type vibe. So just a lot of good feelings going around, and that all begins and ends with Kale. Good person, interesting individual, heck of a disc golfer, and course designer. I know you guys touched on the course a little bit and the scores and everything, but a few people that I talked to really enjoyed the place and the course as well. So.
And I think there's something to be said, and Eagle was out on the board saying that he kind of likes to see some of the birdie or die courses. There is something to be said. We've talked about it before, like the Memorial and maybe even Vegas a little bit. There is a different kind of pressure when you have to birdie everything, which is what this course is, or Eagle for that matter. It adds that extra bit of like that par hurts that much more. Yeah. When there's a lot of OB, you feel like if I get a par, it's not as bad because somebody might go OB later and I can make that stroke up. That doesn't exist here at all. If you miss a hole, you are down a stroke, and there's very little chance of you catching it back up later, unless you throw in a miracle shot. So I think there's just an added pressure for this type of course. It's a different kind of golf, and I'm not against it. I said the same thing about the Memorial and its course, and there's a dozen other courses like it around the country that are A tiers. We just don't usually see that on the Pro Tour as much anymore.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like there's just plenty of room out there, Dana? Would you like to see anything tightened up, and do you think we'll see maybe some OB lines that are created or somehow compressed at all out there? Do you think when we play this particular course, which for some who may not know, this is a hybrid kind of the two courses that are otherwise out there, today, if you were to go out there, for instance, this is a different course entirely. Do you think we'll see things maybe get tightened up or not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, I could see a little more teeth being added to the course. Maybe not, going and ledge stoning it and dropping a bunch of OB lines. That's one thing that Kale did talk about, was that it's this natural place and doesn't want all this unnatural out of bounds, and I like that. And Johnny, you just mentioned it about the Memorial and being its certain style of golf. the way I see it, and I've talked about this quite a bit on Smashbox, is that I like that each weekend gives a different flavor, and I would say the preserve had a pretty darn good flavor. Yeah, you had to get birdies, but man, I watched some of the coverage. Those guys were throwing really good shots. Like, they were making huge shots, like big putts, throw-ins, like every little thing. It's not like they were just going out there and not earning those birdies. They were earning the birdies and doing what you expect, top players to do. And they put on a show. I didn't watch as much as I would have liked to, but the stuff I watched was good disc golf.
Yeah, and maybe for what it's worth too, and this came a lot from the locals, was the fact that there was very little, almost no wind. And a lot of the locals have been saying, hey, we've been out here playing every day or practicing a lot out here on this property, and it's almost always been windy out there. Obviously, there's not a lot of tree coverage out there. And then this weekend, it's almost dead calm. I mean, there was the lightest wind that you could feel on Sunday, on the final day, I felt like. But otherwise, it was dead calm. Now, you add a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind out there for all 3 rounds, and I think scores, I think at least a couple birdies per person are negated just because of a weird wind bounce or something like that. So, maybe we just had really ideal scoring conditions on top of it.
Sure. Yeah, and that thick, hot air, the disc flies really well in that. So it did set up for some great scoring conditions and, making it a little bit easier. But, yeah, I wouldn't expect to see too many major changes. I thought the course flowed good. It had some great, memorable looking holes. Maybe just a little bit more teeth. We talk about hole 18 kind of being what kind of challenge it is for our top players. Maybe that's something that turns into a par 4, or maybe just a minor tweak to make it more of a par 5, a true par 5 challenge. Because these players are so good. They come in those holes that just don't have that distance or that incredible challenge to it. They become really easy. 700 to 800 foot par 4s aren't. It's not quite enough. So these days.
Well, and I wanted to bring up specifically hole 18 now that thanks to UDisc and udisclive.com. You guys can always go check out previous information. It's stored out there forever, which is great to go back years and years later even. But hole 18 came in as the single easiest hole on the course, and it averaged, at least during the 3rd round, at 4.3 for the par 5. 67% of the field shooting below par. 13% of the field, so 13 out of 102 people, had taken eagles on it. And I take no credit for this next statement. At the Dynamic Disc Open, it was really interesting to overhear Paul Macbeth talking about par 5s in golf and how frequently those are some of your easiest holes scoring-wise. And that really made me think about what we saw here. The par 5 out on hole 8, which of course was laden with OB. The par 5 here on 18, were those the only 2 par 5s? I think they were. And they played very differently in terms of their overall difficulty. But hole 18 came in as the single easiest hole on the course. The final hole, good, bad, or indifferent, it certainly made for the drama for our final hole of the event. And I think I heard Cale saying as we were wrapping up interviews, he's like, I knew it was going to come down to the 18th hole and an eagle to win it on the 18th hole. I don't know how long ago he called that, but if he really said it, which I believe, he was dead on. And who in their right mind would have guessed 4 players tied on the final hole, and we don't have a playoff, and sure enough, an eagle wins it.
Wild finish, no doubt. And even wilder is that Niko didn't realize that was the case. Is that accurate? He was, according to the post-round interview, was just worried about putting the frisbee in the basket. I think was what he said. So just a awesome finish, a lot of fun to watch, and then just hearing that revelation that he didn't know where it was kind of was a little wild to me.
Exactly. And it was his girlfriend, Ariana, I believe her name is. She had said, she's like, you won, right? And he's like, I don't know, or whatever he said to her.
I
and
literally saw you laughing behind him, like, because he had no clue. Like you just burst out laughing in the live, and we couldn't hear it, but I could see you. I'm like, what's he laughing
They were
about?
genuinely confused between the two of them. And she's like, no, you won. And he's like, huh? And like, it was just this epic moment. And I guess the championship question is, if Neko knew before he stepped up to that putt,
How much longer would that putt taken?
no, if he would have known that was for the outright win, is there a chance that somehow Neko doesn't make it? I mean,
No.
he's missed a few short putts. I mean, he missed a very short putt, I think, in the beginning of, was it round 2 or round 3, right off the bat? I'm just saying, it's a totally different pressure, and I give him all the credit in the world that he was just trying to make it, and that's all that mattered. But if he would have knew that was for the win, that's a different pressure, right, Dana?
Definitely. Hard to speculate on, if he would have made or missed it, but he surely had that spin putt working. Kind of a newer, we know Neko that he goes in and out of different putting stances and angles and everything, but that particular putt that he was leaning on was a different one than I've seen out of Neko, and I was a little surprised when I saw that that was his putt, but it was working, and he was feeling it, and boy, he jammed that last one dead center. There was no doubt about it.
I'm not going to go back in the footage and look, but I would be willing to bet there were plenty of putts of similar distance that he goes with his typical straddle, pendulum putt. Mm-hmm. And that time he stepped up for that reason in that situation and went with the spin putt. Now, I understand. I've watched him go in and out of it, like you've said, to this newer spin putt more frequently. It's almost always been because of the topography or because of the wind or whatever. I'll be the first to admit I'm surprised he did it in that short of a distance with such light wind. But that's
I think
what he was feeling.
He opened the round with a missed straddle from about the same distance.
Exactly.
And then immediately went to hole 2 to the spin putt, and it seemed like unless he was forced to, he stuck to that spin putt, maybe aside from a putt or two during that round, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to say I think he still makes the putt, even if he does know it's for the win. It does put a different pressure on, and in his situation, he knows things are tight, so he knows he has to make every putt either, regardless. So it's not like it would have changed his game plan, but it does present a different pressure when you know it's for the outright win. So.
Yeah, but I not knowing what the score was, he felt he had to hit that to probably at least get in a playoff.
Exactly.
So I don't know if the pressure is much more or less. It's a different pressure, but I don't know if it's necessarily more or less. I think regardless he hits it. It is interesting he went to a spin putt, but I feel like he just knew that he wanted it straight and flat and let not have to worry about the pendulum, not worry about the swing, just jam it in there and let the gods decide if the basket wanted to keep it.
Just epic. So we'd be remiss, and we would be not doing our job. And we do wish he was here, of course, and he can still maybe join us. But we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't at least answer or talk about the elephant in the room that everyone continued to bring more of those elephants in. Neko's timeliness, usually on the green, and I'll say it can be an approach, it can be a drive, but his timeliness with his putts, or lack thereof in terms of timeliness. Dana, you've played on the professional circuit. You're friends with a lot of these people. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, Neko is he's a very deliberate and slow player, and he certainly was on that last putt. And it's a tough one because there's a crowd and there's a lot of different factors going on. I personally would have a hard time calling somebody on that time. I don't think it was like he was using it to bend the rules. Like if there was, waiting for the wind to calm down, maybe that's a case where I maybe step up and say, let's go, buddy. Put the frisbee in the basket there, will you? But no, I don't have too much of an issue. Yeah, it's not that fun to watch. But
okay,
the time thing for me isn't a huge deal. And there could be factors that are slowing him down, but yes, he's a slow, deliberate player, and it bothers a lot of spectators. So
Eagle on the board says maybe we should change it to 45 seconds, and then no one has to worry about this. My question is then, does someone end up taking more time and get to that 45-second point if they have that opportunity? I don't think the 30-second, while it's part of the problem, it seems like there is really only maybe 2 or 3 offenders in our sport that really get to that time, that have that hit that limit where people get really frustrated at the putting.
And more so, just make it noticeable. I think when you have a few people that are frequently at or exceed it, they just kind of stick out like a sore thumb, because like you just said, we have so few people that do it, and then when they do, I think it becomes, this, like I said, this big elephant in the room. So I'm not going to let you off that easy, Dana. I'm good with the final pot, and I'm not saying, well, a rule shouldn't be enforced here and it should be in another situation. I don't believe that there were any distractions in Niko's situation or anything that would have allowed for more than 30 seconds. I did not time the final pot personally, so I'm not sure how close that was. What about prior instances? Do you feel the same? Like it's just part of his routine, and therefore, it is what it is? Because I think people were even maybe more concerned about prior instances than, say, just the final pot.
Yeah, I think I'm a person that likes to play by the rules, so I feel almost hypocritical saying that I'm okay with the time limit, but I don't know. If a player on the card is bending a rule like that, and you feel the need to call them, give them a warning or call them out, then I say do it. He had 3 players on his card that could have stepped up and said, Neko, speed things up, and he likely would have sped things up throughout the round, or maybe even that final hole he would have reset and taken his 30 seconds with the warning. So if you don't like it and you're playing with them, or you're playing with somebody in leagues or in your local tournament, and it's bothering you, call them on it.
For sure.
Try to play by the rules. Play by the rules. I shouldn't say try. Play by the rules. And again, I feel a little hypocritical in this instance that I'm saying it's not a big deal, but to me, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
So.
Well,
and maybe, obviously, part of it, as we've talked about, is the awkwardness in the group that becomes that. I'm not necessarily here to be a proponent of having officials on every hole, because I don't think that's, or even the lead card for that matter. Although I wouldn't be opposed to like the first and second card. Usually that's where our winners come from. But if this becomes a problem and the players don't want to address the player, then at some point someone maybe should address a third party to come and address Neko, so that it's a little more anonymous. If someone on the card has a problem with his time, go to Jeff Spring and have Jeff come over and say, hey, Neko, we've noticed that you are taking your allotted time and then some at times. Can we please make sure to speed it up? Because as someone asked on the board about whether the PGA has a time limit, I said I didn't think they did, but it turns out they have a 40 second plus an additional 20 at times. And I only said I didn't think so because it was like 2 years ago, an official had to come out on the course and notify a player and say, hey, you are taking too much time because you are hurting the flow of play. A lot of times that's not even, it's not usually called, I think, just like in disc golf, it's called less. But you do have officials come out and kind of say, hey, hurry it on up here or something's going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't want to harp on this, too much longer. The only other thought I have, I understand. I'll be the first to admit, as a player and as someone who's, watched plenty of golf, there's the situations where you're in the most awkward spot and it takes you extra time to literally get to your lie, to adjust it. And when that happens once or twice around, I think everyone is understanding of it, because those are rare instances. I think the part that gets either other players and or some of the spectators frustrated is you seemingly, it looks like they have a wide open, 100-foot or 22-foot shot, and it still somehow exceeds 44 seconds to throw. I think that's where people really, really seem to have more issue with it.
And nobody wants to be the player that quote unquote wins because you threw somebody else off their game. Like that.
Of course.
That to me is the other kind of subject, in that nobody wants to be the guy that goes up to goes up to Niko and says, "Hey, can you speed it up?" And it, so to speak, works Niko, and he tries to speed it up. And
I think there's a few players out there.
Well,
that
okay,
if they were on the card, they would have stepped in to work him and say, hey,
there might be.
Oh, definitely. I mean, hey, I'm not going to name names.
Name names.
Come
Dana.
on, Dana, drop some names. Who's gonna try to work Niko? But I don't feel. I'll put it this way: the card he played with this weekend, the people he played with, I don't feel like most of them would. While all of them would enjoy a win, I don't know if they would enjoy as much knowing that you kind of threw someone off their game on maybe not necessarily on purpose, but it's a funny situation. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna move on. Someone's asking, why does it matter? Well, because where do you draw the line as to what rule you do or don't want to enforce? This isn't totally arbitrary, believe it or not. But regardless, Niko, phenomenal play, plenty of heart, soul, passion, grind. I know, and I one thing I didn't say to him in the interview, I know he's frequently plays more practice rounds than most players. I know he's at the course till dark half the times. He may go to a course and on a day before the tournament play 3 rounds and he's still putting in the dark after everyone's left. And then we've seen him. He was in contention to win Maple Hill a few years ago. He didn't win, and instead he grabbed his bag and went out and played in another entire round of golf. While people were wrapping up and doing other things, he's out playing another round of golf on a Sunday evening. He's driven, he's motivated, and he fought hard, and he took this one down. So, Dana, I'll ask you a segue to kind of just a sheer sports-related reference is, so if someone wins and is leading, and then they lead throughout, that we call that wire to wire, right? Mm-hmm. Is this not technically wire to wire if someone from the clubhouse is in with a better score and you still have to catch them? Anybody know how that phrase works? Was that considered wire to wire or not? I mean, he had the lead after the first round. Yeah, he was tied for the lead after the second round.
Wire to wire.
So it's just end score. It doesn't matter if somebody surpasses you during it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a genuine question. I don't know. Yeah. Where's that phrase come from? Let me get Wikipedia out. I'm done with you guys. Carry on.
That's fine. Dan, I bumped up your audio a bit. Somebody was complaining that you were a little quiet. So we're good.
All right, Dana.
No, I got you. No sweat.
Is it even news? FPO? Paige? Again? I mean...
Incredible.
Yeah.
She's just, I would say, off-season 2.0 treated her well, but I mean, she was killing it before. What did she change? Did she? I don't even know if she practiced. I know she did play the Avocado Open, but did she pick her discs up even, up to the DD Open? Maybe not. And that Paige, that works for Paige. She's so gosh darn good. And she steamrolled him this weekend. Didn't give him a chance, stepped on the throat from the beginning to the end. A little wire to wire, Terry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was, just another dominating Paige performance, double-digit win, topping off 1,000 rated rounds. Seemingly, Paige is, coming off this break. She's in a good headspace and feeling really good, with the big DD Open and win, and then just making a mockery of everybody at the Preserve.
Someone had posted that she's averaging over 1,000 for the last 6 rounds. I think I only did the math for the last 3 this weekend. I think it was 1,009 was maybe the average, if I recall. But yeah, over her last 6 rounds, still averaging over 1,000. So just all in all, unbelievable golf. I mean, she's not just going out there and beating the field. She is distancing herself in a way that's also then securing these high ratings on top of it, which, at this point, she does keep in the back of her mind. I know you're concerned about the win first and a rating second, but as the highest rated woman ever, she's got her sights set on continuing to raise that bar with every ratings update.
And if there's a course that suits Paige, it's this one. Distance, very little OB to be aggressive. Like she can attack the course without a lot of consequences for her. As opposed to some other ones, we'll say like the DD Open, where there's a lot of OB, where attacking the course could cause you strokes. There was much less of that here for the FPO field.
Yeah. It's almost, I don't want to take away from Paige's win. It's incredible, but there were a couple other big storylines out of the FPO that we've got to talk about. And the first is Katrina and her third round, specifically the third and final round, her putting. Circle 1, C1X, 100%. That is huge. Katrina has struggled over these last few years with her inside the circle putting. It's been pretty bad. It's been tough. I can only imagine. Actually, I know the grind that she's going through, putting herself in position to birdie so many holes and then 2 putting, 3 putting, or worse. And we've seen it, early rounds this last weekend, but then the final round, she stepped up and 100% inside circle 1X, C1X.
Now, is this, and I guess we don't know the answer. I was going to say, is this an aberration, round 3, and we're going to see the old cat come out? Was this just quote unquote a lucky round for her? Or do you feel like this is something that she is going to build off of, because clearly she can, and are we going to see a better putter in the future? Because rounds 1 and 2, she didn't putt horribly, but she didn't putt great either.
Yeah.
So was it just round 3? She put herself in great positions. She hit a couple big ones. She hit a couple ones that we feel like she should hit that she's missed. And are we going to see the return of old cat or not?
This is a step in the right direction. I think she'll, there's still going to be she's still got a ways to go. For her, it's about its mental and its confidence. And, what better way to build confidence than to make every single putt inside the circle in a round, in a final round, and move up and, beat. She beat Missy Gannon, which I would say is the other, story from the FPO side that I want to talk about. But yeah, this is, I think it's, I'm not going to say she's going to come out and make every putt from here on out, but this is a step in the direction to put her in position to, get the percentages up in circle 1. And I'm glad to see it, because I know it's not for lack of practice, but going out and actually doing it in a round, doing it in the final round, a meaningful round, is that's a good confidence booster. And it's probably going to, watch out FPO side, maybe this is that little catalyst that the cat needed, that mental bump to help her out.
And I was going to say, it's going to make me sound heartless here, and I'm okay with that. There's a humor to watching some of these pros miss putts, period. Like, people like to see it, but it shows a human element. It shows a human element, and it's funny sometimes. You watch someone dink a putt that that they shouldn't, but at some point, like where it was getting with Kat, it was no longer funny. It was it was heart-wrenching. And to see her hopefully start to get over that hump would be fantastic. And for a number of reasons. One, for her personally, but two, to make the FPO field that much tighter, make it more competitive, make it more fun to watch. And not that it's not fun to watch Paige crush, because it truly is, because we're seeing something special. But it takes a little of the drama out of it, because people, including myself, sometimes have a hard time rooting for that, who's going to take third or who's going to take second, when we all know that the big picture is who's going to take first. I hope we are seeing the start of something new with Kat.
Well, I'm going to flip this all on its head, just as an alternative position to what you guys are both saying. And I hope for Kat, and I hope for the game, you guys are both right that maybe this was specifically a catalyst, which is a great pun if you think about it, Dana. A catalyst, or is a starting point or a reset point. Or another alternative approach, though, could be by this third round, she's out of contention. Truly, in this case, she's out of contention. Is there just the pressure's not there? She's no longer thinking, first and second round, things can be closer. Obviously, you just don't want to lose the tournament on the first or second day, but there's a different element to it. There's a different pressure. And by the third round, it's like, I'm just going to go out and play my game. And maybe that is part of it as well that had set in. I hope it's more of what you guys are saying. It's the former in that, something just clicked for her, and that's the way it's going to be. I worry, though, if things aren't improved in the next, opening round, it could have been just the fact that, well, she's kind of comfortable and knew she was already going to be taking second or third probably, and therefore there's just not nearly as much pressure. So
she's been in that position, but she's been in that position a lot over the last few years, and the 100% inside circle one hasn't happened.
Sure. Okay.
Still going out there and grinding and putting all that pressure on herself to be great and to make these putts. So I'm not totally. I don't see it as the pressure was off type of thing. So she made her putts. This was hard work and focus and everything clicking, and it's going to be that building up. We'll see what happens here over the next couple of weeks if she can. Continue on with that, but for her to have that mental win is really good. That's there's no doubt about it. It's a huge win for her mentally, whether or not she was out of contention or not. So
for sure, yeah, I do agree with you, and I know she made a post out there on the Facebooks. I think it was just today about still not the performance. I'm going to read from her Facebook. Still not the performance I was hoping for and striving for, but I had some small victories I'm celebrating, and then I'm going to try and build off looking forward. Thank you to Kale and his crew, and so on and so forth. So, you just nailed it right on the head, Dana. You have to build on those small victories or those successes or whatever they are, and hopefully that carries you into the next event. Also, FPO side, I mean, we did have that excitement, like you said, Johnny. It wasn't necessarily for first, but we saw some of the exciting stuff with Sarah Holcomb making a push, Paige coming out at the end of round 2 saying she's going to give it a full send, which is a great quote. And like I said, Holcomb, who just admittedly will tell you this isn't her style of course, at the distance that was out there is not suit her game necessarily. And then Missy Gannon proving, she's finishing what we all feel like is right where she belongs, like right at the top, and pushing for to contend with someone like Paige and Kat every single weekend, and she proved that again this weekend.
Yeah, that's a couple 2 weeks in a row with really strong finishes for Missy. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to to hang on to get that second place again, but third place still a great finish, against two of the all-time greats. So it's fun to watch her progress, and then see if she can has enough in her to compete and catch Paige, maybe beat her. This weekend Katrina bested her, so it'll be a storyline for us to watch. If Missy can continue and what Kat's looking like inside the circle, and then obviously Paige on her march to get that rating up even higher than it is now, and maybe eventually to that 1,000 mark.
What I will say is, I think Paige knows her number one competitor stateside right now is Missy Gannon. I think she firmly believes that, because she believes in Missy as much or more than Missy even, and she recognizes Missy's talent and loves and adores and appreciates her as a friend, and knows that as a competitor right now, Missy is right there on her heels and is ready and is hungry to come after her. I know she's not done it yet, but I'm saying Paige's biggest threat, maybe I'll just reword this to say Paige's biggest threat stateside right now is Missy.
I will give you that, because when you say Missy is at Paige's heels,
okay.
Paige is running around the block. Paige is running around the block, and Missy's like nipping at her heels after a lap.
Maybe okay,
based almost solely. No, not even. I was going to say based solely on Paige's distance over Missy, but that's not even true, because I've watching Paige Pierce drop in 30 to 40-foot putts is phenomenal. Yeah. She is just laser accurate lately, and it's fun to watch. It used to be kind of like Kat almost, where I would watch Paige walk up to a 15-footer, and I'd kind of think, what's she going to do here? Like she had a tendency to miss some short ones, one or two around maybe. I don't feel that way anymore. Yeah. I just think, oh, this is in. She's canning this, no doubts, and she has been. And it's, again, fun to watch. I honestly, though, think the story in FPO this year so far, Kona Panis. I think Kona has come out this year and has been beating players that I did not expect her to beat. Like, you look at the fields, and like the names we were talking about at the beginning of the season were Lisa Fakis, Rebecca Cox. We were talking about the Paige shoes and stuff. And while Paige got her this week, I think Kona has come out really strong and has shown that she has a drive herself. And,
absolutely.
And not just a drive on the field, but an actual drive on the course. It's fun to watch, and I think Kona has a lot of potential to kind of really move up that leaderboard because Kona can throw far. Maybe not as far as Paige yet, but Kona's got a cannon on her, and if she can just kind of wield in that putt that she has and really hone it in, I think we're going to see some more podium finishes by Kona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I saw that she, after round one, was on the lead card again, which similar to the DD Open, where I believe DD, she kind of went the wrong direction after the first round. But it was good to see her stay up towards the top here. What did she finish in? Fifth place or so?
Sixth. Tied for sixth this weekend. Yep.
Okay, tied with Holly, right behind not right behind, but behind Paige Shue. So yeah, definitely Kona is a name to keep an eye out for, and showing that she's got what it takes to compete with these girls. Now it's just about doing it over 3 rounds instead of just 1 round. And that's, as an improving player, that's one thing that you look at, or that I look at when I see players like that come out, whether it's on MPO, FPO, any division, and shoot some hot rounds, but then kind of go back down. She's climbing that ladder and improving, and she's got that it factor in her. And so it's just a matter of getting more consistent for her. And I do want to shout out to Colton, her boyfriend and touring partner,
and the inspiration of your mustache.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. Yep. No, he's my inspiration for the stash, definitely. I had mustaches when Colton was probably in diapers. Jesus.
Well, maybe you're his inspiration then. I don't know, but
I respect Colton and his mustache. But it was awesome to see. Colton, obviously, one of the big stories early in the year, winning Waco, just an incredible round and win. And then just with the uncertainty with the season disappearing, he was riding pretty high there. I would assume he had to be riding pretty high, ending the season, early part of the season with that win. And then he came out at the DD Open and had a lackluster first round, and then shot well the rest of the way. But for him to come to the Preserve and play well and have his name up in that first place slot there down the stretch, as the name to beat until Emerson ultimately came in, and then obviously the lead card. But I was happy to see Colton come back around this weekend and play some really solid golf. Just go, it's a thrower's course, and Colton he's a heck of a thrower, and but it was good to see that he did well there, and showed that Waco wasn't some one-off thing, that he's there to compete and to win. Maybe not every weekend, but maybe every other weekend, which isn't so bad, is it?
No, and what I was going to follow that up with a compliment of just saying, I'm not surprised that he came back and he played really well here. I mean, everything you just said, he's got the game, he's got the skills for it, and of course he had that really rough opening to the DD Open, and then I think the second round, I think he had improved by 18 strokes.
Yeah,
I think was the
he
number.
Was like 14 over par after the first round or something, and came back with a -4.
So something along those lines. So very impressive what he's doing, and again, not surprised to see him finish well. Dana, have you heard where you can see coverage of Colton? Second round?
Is that a little DG guy action? A little DG Justin Skorpinski?
Yeah, it is, and we'll talk about that more later. But yes, Colton, blessed to have him on I believe it was the fourth card for that second round. And I saw him when I did see him on Sunday, I said, did I see a throw-in from you on hole one during the final round? It's like, yeah, I wish I would have done that yesterday when you guys were filming it. But yeah, he had what I believe is the lone eagle.
110-foot throw-in.
On hole number one to take the 2, which is clearly incredible. So big shout out to Colton, and I know Dustin really enjoyed filming a lot of the players this weekend, and he said Colton, no surprise, was one of the warmest and friendliest out of all the people that he talked to. So yeah, great to see. I see they're already in Manitowoc here, just an hour and a half north of where Johnny and I are right now, just up the interstate. A lot of our pros have been posting in the last day or two about coming over from Minnesota over here to the to Two Rivers and or Manitowoc for this weekend's Silver Series event, which is called the Silver Cup, and it's been called that for a few years. So it becomes a little bit of a tongue twister when people are like, what is it called? Because it's the Silver Cup, which is on the Silver Series of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So
yes,
if you guys need any clarification on that later, there you go. So Dana, great event. Everybody enjoyed themselves. I think the courses will kind of return to normal out in Minnesota. I guess we could wrap that conversation up by saying if you went out there today, you would not see the same course configuration that you just saw this last weekend.
Are you sure? I thought Cale had said they were going to keep it up for like a week.
Okay, well.
But in general, if you went out there in the future.
By the time you're done listening to this podcast, which takes a week or two to get through, by the time you get out there, you would find 2 separate courses which play very differently, of course. Is that your understanding of it?
Yeah. Yep. 2 separate courses, a lot of water to fish and or swim in. And like I said earlier, just good vibes all around.
Yeah, beautiful facility, and I'm excited to see what they do. I talked to the owner of the actual land. His name is Wayne. He had a great story. He was excited. He's like, this place hasn't seen, his phrasing was, this property hasn't seen this much golf in more than 2 years, because of course it used to be a ball golf course. And so he just kind of had a glow, and he's grinning from ear to ear. And a moment like that was just one of the more memorable moments of the weekend for me, is to see this gentleman that owns the property, and he's sitting in his golf cart. We're overlooking the green of 18, and he's just soaking it all in. And he's genuinely in awe of what this crazy sport is doing here on this property right in front of his own eyes. And it's just one of those moments, it's kind of an aha moment
Share
for
the story,
man.
man.
For a non-golfer.
Share that story with other golf courses.
Yeah, incredible. So
I do, before you guys cut me loose, I do want to ask you, Terry, you were being on site at the DD Open and then also obviously at the Preserve. What differences did you notice in terms of the event with the whole COVID-19? Kansas obviously had some different things going on than Minnesota, but what did you notice different between players overall? What was it like?
First of all, hats off to the entire Disc Golf Pro Tour and all the staff and the crew that are are forcibly implementing these policies and procedures. There is no shortage of hand sanitizer on what I feel like is every single tee. Now that I think about it, there's a huge gallon pump jug of hand sanitizer, along with a bottle, a water spritzing type bottle that players can use to then sanitize, and whether it's your disc or your hands or the chains or whatever. So you of course you see that. With regards to Minnesota, although things were technically a little looser in some ways in terms of the state's requirements, in some ways they weren't, because you were to have, per the state or the county, you were to have a face mask with you at all times on your person. So you didn't necessarily have to always have it on. And of course, some situations you did, but you had to have one with you at all times. And just the staff and the crew did a lot of the same things that we saw at DD Open. I mean, a lot of your Trevor, who was calling out the names, was always wearing one. When Jeff or myself got close enough to certain individuals for any amount of time, you would then put one on as well. My interviews were kind of conducted in the same sense that I was somewhat near the cameraman, as far away as I could be, but then opposite of the players. And that, I'll just admit again, it feels really weird. I've been standing next to our players, so if I have to touch them, I can, but I've been standing next to them.
They don't like
for
that.
10 years. And now I'm standing across from, which I understand. It's just it just feels different. It doesn't feel quite the same as I'm reading body language and closing out interviews. Sometimes it's a little awkward because everyone's like, "Where are we looking? What's going on?" They did great. There was more people that were allowed in Minnesota. I think they could have upwards up to 250 total people maybe on the property. And they were regulating that at the gate, which is great. There's one specific way to come into the course, one and only one way. And so they could always keep tabs on how many people were out there. If you were a player and you wanted to stick around and spectate, you could. You could watch your fellow competitors, but you had to make sure you had a badge on, so everyone was kind of accounted for in that sense. And then they had a very limited amount of spectator badges that were available. So it was good. Were there people out there, was there still a gallery that at some points got within close proximity to each other while walking across a bridge? Admittedly, yeah, there were at a few points. And is there a few pinch points? Yes, there were. But Jeff was also really good at saying, hey, as we're walking down hole one's fairway, stay 50 or 100 feet away from the players and then stay away from one another, and constantly trying to just spread people out. So
there were clearly some issues you could see on the live, and I haven't really taken in too much of the post, so I don't know for sure on there. But some of the things that I saw that kind of maybe cringe a little bit. I would like to see the cameramen behind the tee box be wearing masks at all times. I just think, guess what? You are probably within 6 to 8 feet of a player. I know you're behind a camera and you're not facing them. I still think all the cameramen should be wearing masks. And I have as much sympathy for the cameramen as it was 100 degrees out there, not comfortable to be wearing a mask. The catch cameramen, I don't necessarily think nearly as big of a deal. You are
standing out in the field.
Standing out in the field. But I think when you're behind the tee box, like once you spread out from there, maybe take it off. But when you're behind the tee box, I would love to see the cameramen put a mask on, because it does look, the camera can do funny things with distances.
Cameras make me look bigger.
I know. Trust me.
Way bigger.
These two cameras right here make you look way bigger. And so it's a perception thing. I would like to see that more. And on top of that, sometimes our cameramen talk to the players, or the players come and talk to the cameramen, and it just make it a little more comfortable. The other thing was the celebration at the end with Neko. It's so hard because Neko who we know hasn't won a big event since like 2011. Like it is, and to watch his friends, like some of his closest friends, Kale and Barsby, like come up and just embrace him. You kind of forgive some of that, and I don't know. Maybe Barsby's on his list.
Yeah, correct.
His contact list. Maybe Kale is too. I have no idea, but just the look of it was kind of like, yeah, that's not the best look for what we're doing. Let's try. Let's maybe back off of that a little bit. I saw some of the players, maybe Eagle and Simon, kind of do the foot 5, which is perfect and what you want to do. Maybe even Calvin. It was a kind of a jumbled mess for a little while there. We can do better, and I'm hoping as we continue, this continues to go on. I don't know what it's going to be like at D-Glow, because I know they probably have different restrictions in their state than Minnesota even has. And overall, I think we're doing a good thing. But as always, we can do better, and I hope that we do.
Dana, I guess I'll throw the question back to you. What are the how does it look to you? I mean, are you at all nervous or worried when you're watching? That's what I feel on site in terms of, I just explained everything I see on site. But how about you? Do you have a take?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love to see, I feel like I'm a person that's taking, rightfully so, taking this very serious and trying to, social distance when applicable. And, I wear my mask when I'm out in public spaces, but I feel like outdoor venues and being outside and moving around, it's a little, I don't know. But I agree with Johnny that, maybe that camera guy that's on the tee should be masked up and all that. But I think that the emotion of, seeing Neko win, and having, Ricky run up and give him a hug, and, a couple of these other players you referenced, it can be easy to forget, that we're in the middle of a pandemic and that we shouldn't be having this sort of contact with players, like, the elation and joy that, they had for Neko and that I had for Neko. You want to go give him a hug. You want to give him a high five. And we just got to remember where we're at, because, it could derail the whole pro tour. It could derail your year. It could cause a lot of issues, and we still, as players, as disc golfers, and as disc golf pro tour players, we need to be smart and realize that these hiccups, these little hugs and contacts can it can spread. It can spread it, and it can cause a problem and shut down the whole thing. So this is their livelihood. So take it serious and try to remember. But, in that moment, I could see just, forgetting for a second, because, I've done it. I've played a couple of leagues, and, I've thrown out some fist bumps for, and gotten fist bumped for, a crazy shot or something, and then say, oh, I forgot, I need to, so I'm not trying to say I'm up on a pedestal saying no, because I've had a couple, mistakes, but otherwise I'm, taking it serious. And these players, if, they want to keep playing every week, need to, abide by these rules and stay with their clicks, so to speak. But yeah, you talk about Neko, roughly 9 years, between major, big wins, and, it hard not to hug him, hard not to high five him. Shout out to, the guys that did run, give him that foot 5. I think it was Simon and Eagle maybe ran over and gave him that. Big respect to them. And then Eagle, I think I saw an interview with him where he had the
face covering, the face shield.
The face shield, that, I think that goes a long way. And I would love to see, the rest of the players, take that approach as well.
Yeah, of course, you see within the groups, and I know Paige talked about it last week, some of the policies and the procedures about kind of who your travel group and your travel clique or your travel arrangement is, and who you're then most frequently in contact or closest with. And then if that changes at any point, you actually fill out a form, and just all the seriousness that they're taking with those precautions as best as we possibly can as things are starting to move forward. And we get it. We don't need to drone on about everyone's personal feelings. We know what the rules and the restrictions and the regulations are. And as we look at those are what need to be followed, and those are what are in place right now. As much as you may agree or disagree with whatever's happening, there's still the rules that are laid out for us right now. So if you guys want to argue about it on the chat board, feel free.
I think there's no, if for some reason someone got sick and then passed it around, there's no it's going to shut down the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So stay away from each other, follow the guidelines and hopefully, stop any spread if they're, hopefully everybody stays healthy, but follow the guidelines. It's simple. What would we be talking about now if there wasn't the Preserve Open, because it had to be canceled because of, the spread of, if someone had it and passed it along to everybody. But yeah, I encourage everybody to, take care of themselves, their family members, and, mask up, because what's worse, wearing a mask or potentially getting sick and then having lingering effects. It's clear that, wearing a mask and social distancing plus hand washing is the key. It's the way to go. So.
My favorite meme I saw from the weekend was Paige Pierce loves to practice social distancing. She's always at least 6 strokes ahead of her competitors.
I think she's taken that to another level. But it's working for her, for sure. Danamite, we got a couple weeks off in terms of official. I mean, of course, the Silver Series, the Silver Cup, Silver Series taking place this week in Manitowoc, Two Rivers area. But and then 2 weeks, or I should say 3 full weeks actually, right? This weekend and next weekend off, and the weekend after is actually the DGLO.
3 weeks. Oh.
So it's technically 3 weeks out.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Hopefully everything still continues to go as planned for the Great Lakes Open with regard to COVID and policies and whatnot. It's still moving forward. What happens over the next few weeks? People lay low. People find Silver Series, maybe an A tier, or take the weekend off in 2 weeks. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I'd say there's probably no weekends off.
They need the money.
Yep, and the competition. It's been gone. It's been dry. I haven't been able to play, and this is their job. This is what they live for, and so they're gonna. I would suspect that the majority of the players are going to be out there competing. Maybe, we didn't see Paul this weekend. Maybe there's a couple of those top level players that are only interested in those, high level tournaments these days. But, I'd say for the most part, we're going to see players out playing Silver Cup or somewhere else, and then popping somewhere else the following weekend. What is next weekend? I know that, was it Mad City was supposed to follow Silver Cup, but
Mad City was originally, I think, not until, I don't think it was till August. But as I continue to look, there is not much in terms of 2 weeks from now. I've been actually looking at the schedule quite a bit. I believe the CCR maybe was originally scheduled somewhere in that time frame.
That was the CCR that was canceled over in Holt, Michigan.
Yeah, and that was going to take place the weekend before the DGLO, which was, of course, very strategically planned that way. But there's not anything major that weekend. I've actually been looking myself.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of our pros go to Georgetown, Indiana for the 10th annual Severin Lang Memorial presented by Innova. That's an A tier on July 18th and 19th. Other than that, and only I say that because it's in kind of the swing.
Exactly.
It's
to head from
area.
Wisconsin, toward that Michigan area.
Right now I see Ricky, Double G, Barsby, Nathan Queen, Logan Bowers, Colton Montgomery, and Corey Ellis, and Trevor Harbolt. Those are your top names. And Dutch. I never forget Dutch.
Batman
will be there.
Signal out. So yeah, we'll see that weekend. And I know nobody's looking for a weekend off, but that might be, with this weekend still being competitive, really competitive. This is probably one of the most stout fields Wisconsin disc golf's ever seen, honestly. With the exception of Worlds in 2007.
And maybe in Mad City many years ago. But
yeah, I don't know. This is about as tough of a competitive field as we've ever seen in Wisconsin. And then that weekend, like I said, the following weekend, the 18th and 19th, that might be kind of a little bit of a lazier weekend before then the DGLO. And then we're right into DGLO, and a week or two later, we've got Idlewild, Ledgestone. So, and then a couple weeks after that, of course, Maple Hill and GMC. So, things are going to be pretty hot and heavy once we get going with DGLO in a couple weeks again. So,
yeah. So if you're a tournament director, your event is still on here over these next couple of weeks, reach out to these pros, have them come shred your course, shred your event, take home some cash. They might be looking for something to do, but they do got to get around Lake Michigan, and that isn't just a quick boat ride. You got to drive all the way around. Of course, you could take the ferry with your vehicle, but we may see a lot of players play this weekend, take the following weekend off, and make their way to those toboggan hills to see if they can shoot an 18, maybe a 19 down.
Can we get a little cooler weather?
Yeah, it says the guy who sits in the air-conditioned basement all weekend.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
It's been hot.
I feel sympathy again for our cameramen.
Yes.
They have. And I'm not going to say they haven't done it without complaints, but their complaints are valid. Like having to hike around those two courses twice in a day for 3 days in 100-degree weather, I feel for them. And that's including the post-production. Well, the post-production crews only usually have to do it one round, but still, I'm sure it's not pleasurable. So let's shoot for some 70s. I'll be happy for some 70s weather.
Yeah. I talked to Ian over at Central Coast. He's like, dude, I'm over this. Like,
he's a Santa Cruz. He's a Cali guy.
Yeah, San Diego, where it never gets above 72, I think. And he's like, he was in Emporia, and then of course here this last weekend. And he's like, I'm over this. And he was flying back Monday, but he could do with less of that. And then he's like, wait a minute, isn't the toboggan hot? And then up and down a bunch of hills on top of it. I'm like, has been the last 2 years, very hot. So, yes, cooler weather would be great. So, Dana, any life updates for you outside of what we talked about a few weeks ago? We know you're in the process of getting houses ready and such, but everything else going well?
Yeah, it's going good. In the scheme of things, everything is good. We've had a few hiccups and bumps, with the whole buying and selling and all that. Why does everything fall apart at my house as soon as I sell it? Washer, had to get a washer, went down. Now our dryer, like with a week to go, stopped working. And, what is going on? And then we've got our new house, we've got to buy a washer and dryer. So I'm buying like 20 washers and dryers over it's just
you think you get a deal.
Yeah, and then these darn people, we're supposed to close on Friday on our new house. We find out that they're taking 5 days post-close to get out. So we buy the house on Friday, and then we don't get the keys until Tuesday afternoon. So that threw off our schedule considerably because we were planning on doing some updating before we moved in, and now that's pushed back because the people were, it's just been again, all good, but some schedule issues and all that. So, but kids are happy. We're trying to stay happy and pack and do all the things and whatnot. But
well, if it makes you feel any better, Dana, I would take 2 new sets of washer and dryer purchases over replacing a full central air unit and possibly now my car's air conditioning. So those 2 sets of air conditioning in the hottest days of the year, I would take a couple new washer and dryer combos. I'm guessing I've already spent more than that on the central air. First world problems, though. Come on, right? Other than that, we're all right.
Not cheap.
Last poke of the bear here, Dana, for you. Got a little bonus coverage, which we'll talk about with Dustin, but specifically picked up a little action on Colton, as I mentioned, of Discmania. I think we had Eagle in one of the rounds, also maybe, and then your superstar up and coming, your next gen winner, Kyle Klein. Are you kidding? That kid is on a tear. He's on a little bit of a mini tour, heading from DD Open up to Minnesota, where he qualified for the USDGC, along with a handful of others, and now I know he's coming over here to Manitowoc. He aced at Blue Ribbon Pines today. But so if Discmania or the sales department wanted to send a few discs my way that I could give to my YouTube watchers of all this great coverage that we're spitting out for you guys, I'm just saying they would appreciate some free discs.
Okay. All right. Let me
a few dozen.
What I can finagle for it, because it might be a week or two. We're right in the middle of mystery box season.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to plug it because
they're gone.
They're gone instantly. So don't try to get one because you might be mad. Don't go tomorrow at Central to Discmania.net to buy a mystery box. Okay, the second version. It's the Crush Boy version. But yeah, no. T-Dog, we got to do something for you. If not, I got to do something for you because I appreciate the coverage and seeing the Discmania Classic up on the big screen TV and then seeing up and comers like Kyle Klein play. You caught my attention. I'm gonna have to watch that if I find a couple minutes here.
Well, don't watch it. I mean, maybe you could mute it. I mean, I don't call you out or anything or you guys, so don't pay attention to that part.
Yeah. I expect nothing less.
Hey, Kyle Klein, though. I know it's been tough with, this is kind of his rookie year, which has been kind of blown up. I know a few of the behind the scenes things, but and obviously the tour, disappearing, but real deal, T. I mean, he had a great finish. Like, what are you've seen?
Say
all
no.
The great, what's your what's your take on this weekend?
I want to hear you say, no, he's a flash in the pan.
Yeah, he's some 18-year-old punk.
Just punk. I mean, just got lucky.
I mean, here I can't say this enough. This is part of why I love my job so much and what I do, because Kyle isn't news to me. I met Kyle a year and a half ago when he was playing in a regional qualifier in Indiana. And I interviewed him then when he was 15 or 16. His dad brought him to it. And the way that he presented himself in an interview at that age, just enormously impressed with that, along with his incredible play. And then you watch him go on and just smash the next gen finale, decline some cash throughout the year and everything else he did. But to then take down the next gen tour championship, win $5,000 when it was all said and done down in Texas last year. And to see the performances he's put out this year now, very early on, and he's humble, he's gracious, he's having fun. He's all of 18, so he went through a senior year, in COVID, as we all did, but his senior year of it, and he's got that enthusiasm. He throws very far, and he putts very well. He understands the game, and I can't say enough. He's just been so gracious, and even today when I got around the final round that featured him along with Barella and Philo and Colin Bailey, who also I feel like is well underrated and underknown. Great kid as well. Kyle sends me a personal message and says, "Hey, thanks for the hard work, to getting those videos out this weekend that Dustin and I had done." And
I know T-Dog. I know you love that.
Coming from an 18-year-old, his parents have done more than something right when he's that gracious, and he's such a a mature gentleman at that age. It's great to see.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm looking forward to catching that coverage on the Disc Golf Guys YouTube channel.
All right, buddy.
Enough of these shameless plugs.
There's never enough. I could plug all day. We appreciate hearing from you, buddy. Like I said before you came on, we love your perspective because you know the golf, you know all the players, but you're consuming it from yet a slightly different vantage point than even we are. And we love hearing your perspective on how these weekends go down for you. And maybe once all the dust settles and some new washer and dryer combos are bought, maybe we'll see you out on a course again soon.
I would love that. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate your hard work, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and letting us be able to watch pro disc golf and watch it at in high quality. So good stuff, Johnny, Terry, everybody, and Smashies. Always good to see you, even though I didn't see you.
Oh, Thanks. They saw you, buddy. All right, good night, Danamite. Again, Dana Vici joining us, getting a little update and insight. That's a great segue. As he was just talking a little bit about the Pro Tour, the broadcast. What I'd like to just quickly touch on, by all accounts, it sounds like people enjoyed the broadcast. A lot of people tuning in and consuming it. Obviously, we talked a little bit about what they, some of the stuff they saw, but it seems like things have been gaining momentum. And I'm not about to pat you or me on the back over it, or the rest of the rest of the network necessarily. But it does sound like it's becoming more and more sought after. People are saying, I'm really enjoying what live has to offer because of the way it's just the show continues to develop. And I can't take any credit for that, so that's why I'm not patting myself on the back.
Yes,
here.
you can.
I mean, the way that it's just continuing to develop in terms of the pieces and the assets and the amount of golf. I know you mentioned that last week. There was so much golf that's being played that people, if you're saying, well, I don't want to, I can't stand live. I'm watching people just walk up fairways all the time.
6 hours.
Then you clearly haven't been watching lately.
So, a couple things. One, yes, you can pat yourself on the back, Terry. You and I helped build this ship that we are now kind of able to reap, hopefully, some of the rewards on this. And it's been 4 or 5 years coming. There's been a lot of times people are saying like, oh, clearly there's no demand for live. All our numbers are showing that. Well, the Disc Golf Network just hit 10,000 subscribers. 10,000, not just subscribers, paying subscribers. Put that in perspective. Jomez has and they're a huge Patreon, 2,500, 3,000 paying people that are giving that to them for free. Because they're getting all the extra bonus stuff from Patreon. The Disc Golf Network just hit 10,000, and the Disc Golf Network is less expensive than some of the Jomez models. I know they've got their different levels and stuff, and there's a demand for live, and it's getting better. I actually had to have a discussion with Mo. I didn't yell at him. I take it back. Day one, I did yell at him. We got to hole 7, I think, and I turned at him. He was sitting right here in your chair, and I go, Mo, we haven't played a commercial yet. And he's like, and he kind of chuckles, and he's like, oh, yeah, the action's been really good. And I go, come on, dude, we got to hit, I feel bad telling him, we have to hit these commercials because we have sponsors and obligations that we need to hit. And it's kind of a power struggle between me and Mo in that Mo wants to tell this awesome story. He's done all this prep work. He's got these graphics and these stand-ups that he's cut up from your interviews and other interviews. And at night we put together these highlight clips of these players. But also, we do have some obligations to our sponsors. And so for once, we are actually having to say, we need to take a break to show sponsors, as opposed to in the past where it was always all right, players tee off, we show a commercial, we come back from commercial, and there was a commercial set between every single hole, basically. We don't have that anymore. We will watch some players, and then try to find a secondary story on another card and cut to that card. It's like, oh, hey, let's check out the second card where Eagle McMahon is 6 down after 7 holes. Let's start watching him play. And a lot of times the timing works out really well. Sometimes it doesn't, whatever. So we are now at a point where I feel like we have to play commercials because of obligations and not just for filler. And I love it. And it's I think we talked about it a little bit last week. The Disc Golf Pro Tour has helped SmashBoxx in so many ways, and vice versa, of course. But with the addition of the awesome cameramen that we have, the consistent cameramen that we have, with Mo being able to spend this time ahead of time prepping all these graphics, and then him and I. It used to be after an event. The event ends at 6:30 or 7. I'd shut my computer off, I'd go upstairs, and I'd think about the next day. Well, now Mo and I are down here until like midnight or 11 o'clock putting together highlight packages that we can play the next day so that we have all this really cool storyline stuff. And it is paying off because we are seeing these numbers grow and grow and grow with the network. And not only just the network, but the YouTube, where we are seeing this weekend on a weekend where I kind of felt like we barely crest 10,000 viewers. I was like, we're going to have some viewers, and 10,000 is great. We used to like be so excited for 5,000 and then 7 and 8, now 10. I was thinking, we'll get to 10,000, no big deal. We still hit 13.5, I think, on the YouTube concurrent. That doesn't even include Disc Golf Network. I have no clue what they were at the time.
or some of the other,
Yeah, so I mean that could have been another 1,000 or 2 that I just am not aware of. It's clearly working. What we're doing is working, and I'm really happy and proud of that.
Well, it's great to see that people love being in the moment, and this is in no way continues to not be a live versus post discussion. I help make post-production videos this weekend, so I understand, and I will continue to make post-production videos as well. So this is not that argument, but it is definitely proving the point that people, if there is a good, compelling product that people enjoy watching, that they're going to tune in, they're going to find a way to watch the live. And the fact that you're able to watch the final day for free, whether you're a Disc Golf Network subscriber or not, you're able to always watch that final day for free on YouTube. I think has just been tremendous. And hopefully there's going to be a point where people are going to say like, yeah, I don't want to miss the first 2 days. I should subscribe. I do want to support what's going on here. And I'd like to see what's gone on in the first 2 days as well. So, and clearly there's a lot of people that have been doing just that. So it's been fun, and it's exciting because as those numbers continue to grow, there's the plan is to continue to just reinvest in what's happening. Mm-hmm. And that's not just more cameras. That is more pieces, more production value, but then also more productions of other things that can be put together for the network as well. I mean, there's so much that can be done with it when there's more revenue that's generated that can go into it. I mean, that's all there is to it.
100%. Trust me, you and I, we're on these production calls, and we hear things like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had like another camera or this or that? And for once, I kind of feel like, whoa, let's slow down.
Yeah.
Like, let's grow at a reasonable pace. We have so many things we need to take into account. We've said it before, adding additional cameras isn't as simple as throwing a cameraman out there. There's a lot
more to it.
There's a lot more to it. It's technology. There's costs. There's data. There's equipment here. And
additional personnel, all of that stuff.
I had a really good discussion on Reddit with somebody who said, hey, I'd love to know kind of what's happening behind the scenes with your production. And I gave her a 3 or 4 paragraph explanation of exactly how it works and what we're doing. And we are unique.
I've been told I am.
Yeah, well, you and I both. In sports right now, tomorrow night, I have an interview, a live broadcast, a video medium like this, just like we're doing, with a company called LiveU, who is the people that make the boxes that stream our cameras. That's where all the modems get plugged into. That pushes it up to a server, and then we pull it down and put it in and mix it up. And they were like, hey, what do you guys are like one of the first sports back from COVID. You're doing this. Can we talk to you about your production, how it's affected, COVID, all this other stuff? So I've been collecting some B-roll, some actual disc golf shots from this past weekend. My wife took a couple photos down here of me and Gary and Mo. And in talking to them and explaining what we do, they were enthralled. They were like, really? You do that? You have like the production you put on is that small? Just, really two technical guys, me and Gary, and Mo steering the ship. And I'm like, yeah, we've kind of built this up for 5 years. And so they were really excited, and I'm going to be on this show tomorrow, and maybe I'll post a link on our Smashbox page at some point tomorrow with some social media that they're promoting. And it is it's refreshing because having seen it grow from, and a lot of you too on the board, having seen it grow from, just one camera that Terry was running with a microphone behind him in California to this 4-camera multi-person production is kind of astonishing in my eyes. And it's cool to see other people see that and go, wow, and with talking, I'm part of I've mentioned before, I'm part of this group on Discord of all these other live producers. And I showed it to them, and I said, hey, kind of take a look at this. I'd love to know. I'd love feedback. And some of them gave me some really good feedback, like, oh, you could tweak this or do this, or you screwed this up clearly. And I'm like, yeah, I missed audio there, whatever. And I know those mistakes. But they had said, they're like, golf is the hardest sport to cover. The hardest because of the expansiveness, because of all the things going on, and with the limit what we have, I think we're doing a really good job. And I'm excited to see where the future brings us.
Yeah, and just to touch on that briefly, just think about how many other sports, and this is just a generic statement. Thank you, Ace Run, for stepping up with our super chat is turned on. Okay. Thank you for trying it out, Ace Run. We appreciate it. They say, thank you for providing us with fantastic live product. You guys are the real MVP. Simmer down. Ace Run, quick plug for those guys. The $4.99 will get you the quick plug as well. They were filming Mega City Mega Disc Golf event, I think is the official term. Frisbees this last weekend, and I know they're working on editing that together. So please check out Ace Run Productions, Ace Run Pro on YouTube. What I was just going to say is just think in general about every sport you know of outside, I guess, maybe some of the Olympic sports that are in a confined space. And that's why, like you said, disc golf is so difficult, just like golf. In a baseball diamond, in a basketball court, on a hockey rink, soccer field, football field, whatever, there's only so many places for the action to truly happen. And in disc golf, we're literally traversing, among 11,000 feet. That's just from tee to pin.
Yeah.
All of these miles that are traversed.
When you see a cameraman, as we saw this weekend, I think it was camera 4, that had to go into the woods, I think on hole 13 or 14, the one where everyone goes OB off to the left.
14,
and the woods all to the right.
Yep.
And we had 2 of our players, and I think an FPO shank it off to the right in the woods, and you see our cameraman like just get in there, and
yeah,
it's a group effort because the post-production guys, especially with as I call him, camera 4, who's doing the FPO production for us. Mm-hmm. It's a group effort, and I can't thank them enough, especially considering like you always like to say, I'm just sitting down here in the air conditioning, pushing buttons. Yeah. They're the ones hiking.
Yeah. My favorite part is everyone's out there hustling around in the heat is listening to, as Johnny V is on a conference call with all of our cameramen and sometimes some other people, and listening to someone like Johnny just chomping on food in your ear.
Yeah.
Guzzling down beverages or chomping on food while everyone's out there.
You don't hear me eat too much.
Baking in the hot sun. That's my favorite part.
I'm glad I can bring some
thank you.
Love
that is
enjoyment to your day, Terry.
Yes. JT asked a quick question. We're not quite to the after show stuff, but does say, what would it take to get booth interaction for Terry on the course, similar to sideline reporters in other sports? And really, that kind of goes back to a lot of the things we were just saying in terms of some technicalities, some budget, and some technology. There's really a lot of those things at play because, as most of you know, our commentators are obviously in Bend, Oregon. I'm at the action in Minnesota. Johnny and the booth are in here in Wisconsin. And to have the right communication devices that allow, plus then there's a slight delay depending on where you're watching and what you're watching, to have the right devices so that everything syncs up in a sense that we can have direct communication back and forth, along with me having one deaf ear. Believe it or not, all of this factors in. And believe it or not, that is very much on top of the wish list here for us to get that figured out, for us to get something like that dialed in. So it's a little more seamless to go from Nate and Val and Jamie. And I'll be the first to admit, I have no idea what they're saying, what they're talking about. There's, again, not a really good way for me to know. And so it gets thrown to me in the field, so to speak, and then I have to talk about whatever I'm talking about.
You don't know if Nate had just made those exact same 3 points.
He very well could have. And we recognize that. And we're going to do our best to find a way to overcome that obstacle or hurdle. So like I said, it can feel and actually be just a little bit more seamless when we're going from the studio out to the sidelines. So just know that you've been heard, and we also know that needs to happen. It just comes down to some technology, some money.
Today, actually, I had a
strategy.
A sheet of paper. I was sitting at work on a conference call and not really having to pay too much attention to it. I had a sheet of paper, and I listed all of our different locations, field, booth, and who needs to talk to who, and what sort of communication method. And there is a program that we've used in the past that I think we'll end up using again in the future called Unity Communication or Unity Comms. And I think that's going to be our solution. It's not expensive, but it's also not cheap. Like if you want to buy it outright, it's like $5,000. If you want to rent it for a particular event, it's like $30 a person per license for an event for like a day or something. I don't exactly know what an event is considered, but ultimately it is in one of the grand schemes of things, and we'll continue to look at that because it would be nice to be able to have Terry and the booth every once in a while, maybe have a communication, so to speak, and be able to work that way. We've gotten really good at the timing where it feels like when Jamie throws it to you that you actually maybe hear it because we do understand there's a 2-second delay. So when Jamie says, all right, let's talk to Terry out in the booth, I'm already counting down like 3, 2, 1, and then Jamie says, let's talk to Terry out in the booth. And that extra 2 seconds, we click over, and then you're like, hey. So we've kind of worked this 2-second delay a little bit, and it's we're getting better. And obviously, as a lot of people pointed out, we still make mistakes. There was an issue this weekend with there was a hot mic for the intro, because at one point I was recording Jamie Thomas over something, and I needed that to be live, and I forgot to turn it off. On one of the days, the picture-in-picture, somehow I clicked something here. I've got a whole bunch of buttons that turned their audio off on that particular shot, the picture-in-picture, so it was silent. And I noticed it like 40 minutes into the broadcast. We'd gone to it 2 or 3 times, and I was like, whoop, sorry, awkward, click, and I turned it back on. And the one, and sorry, Jordan Castro, the one call that Mo and I disagreed with on day 3 was the call to go to Emerson Keith versus Jordan Castro. It was Emerson was on like hole 13 and Jordan was on hole 10. And Mo wasn't quite sure, and I wasn't quite sure, because they were both on pace. Now, Emerson had the lead, but Jordan was on pace as well. He had only missed 2 strokes. I think they started out at about the same score, or they were close to it. And so weren't sure. And finally, I said, let's just go to Emerson. Let's do it. And all I was thinking is, he took 3rd at Worlds. Jordan hasn't shown yet that he can.
Jordan's the Minnesota homeboy.
He is, and we featured him the day before for being the Minnesota homeboy. And I'm like, man, Jordan just he hasn't proven that he can like finish out an event like Emerson has. Like the story, I think, is Emerson. And so eventually Mo and I came to an agreement like, yes, let's go to Emerson. If we need to come back and get Jordan, we can. And then felt a little redeemed because we watched Emerson like eagle the last hole and just have a great final 3 holes. So I was kind of like, yeah, we made the right choice. Not that Jordan would have been the wrong choice, but ultimately after that, Jordan went 4 straight pars before he picked it up on the last couple holes as well. So I was... It really is tough having an extra camera now because you don't want to make the wrong choice. We don't want to have, as we kind of call it, the camera curse. We saw it with Eagle on, I think, day 2. He even said, like, someone came up to me and had a camera in my face. And he said it didn't bother me. It didn't affect me, but it's there in the back of my head. And we don't want to make the story. We just want to show the story. But it's we could very easily, and we've done it, show up at a hole and suddenly either by the time it took us to get there or right after we get there, suddenly we watch a player go bogey, par, and you're like, oh man, come on.
Well, and
that can be a story in and of itself, but it's really fun. What we're doing now is getting really fun.
All right. And some people continue to say that, whether it's delays or not being able to hear the booth, those are all things that we're just kind of working through on any given weekend. And Bob had asked if I can listen to the broadcast while I'm out there. I that would be nearly impossible because not only am I on the phone call with the entire production crew, but then I'm also trying to pay attention to what the players are doing in terms of conversations or pieces, or sometimes players will just openly talk to me or address me or mention things to me as well. And those are things that I want to be always ready and able for. So there's just a lot of moving parts at that point. And sometimes it's, like I said, just even as difficult as the technology for how I can be listening in, but hopefully we'll find a way to make that happen.
Yeah. And somebody asked, like, what's the next, like, where do we feel like the next step is? And for me, I think it's another person in this booth running replays. I would, of all things, I want to see another camera would be great. And I know we want to see more golf, but I feel like right now we have a lot of golf and we're actually running out of time to show sponsors and commercials and stuff like that. For me, having to bounce between what's going on in another card, it's like 5 or 6 clicks and then maybe scrubbing through some video to get to just that exact right point where we see, okay, we got Sarah Holcomb on the tee now, and to have someone be able to do that, to just be able to yell at someone, hey, give me Sarah Holcomb on hole 3, would be miraculous. And I could even focus even harder on just the cameras. When we used to have 2 cameras, I was able to kind of have the 2 cameras going, watch the chat, kind of interact a little bit. That's gone. Someone just asked me, what's the best way to get a hold of you when something like that isn't working? There isn't. Honestly, I shut everything down on my computer now because it takes so much focus to make sure I'm on the ball with all these cameras that I can't monitor chat anymore. And as I told Steve Dodge in previous years, we got Gary to the O here. If you need something, contact him because that guy can then relay it to me as quickly as possible because I am focused. I no longer have the capability to do it. Which is why I want to push off jobs to other people so I can have more fun.
Well,
I mean, that's the key.
That's where I disagree with you about, getting more people in here. I'd love to get some form of like it would have to be more stout than, say, a drone, but like a mini helicopter. So I could just like survey the course, so we could go. I could just like be watching over the hot stories.
That's
from
a
anywhere.
great idea. A helicopter.
Yeah,
a helicopter.
Just me kind of hovering around the action at all times.
That would be a good use of cash.
I think so.
Let's Kickstarter that, or it's a Patreon level, the Terry Miller helicopter level.
Oh man, there's some good ideas.
Before we exit all of this, I will say, if you have ideas or suggestions, we're obviously open to them. Some people don't like the picture-in-picture. I've heard from people that are like, I hate it when you cut away from the men to go to the women. Every complaint, for the most part, is valid in some aspect. We're trying to tell a good story. If we miss shots, which we do at times, because there'll be times when, and I'm just going to use Eagle because he was on the board. Eagle pitched up from 150 feet, put it under a basket. I don't care about that shot for the most part. I know a lot of you do. And if it was something really special, we do have the ability to go back and watch it. Like this weekend, we saw Nate Doss react off camera to the Simon Lizotte throw-in because we weren't on Simon. All I thought was we see Simon in the background and we're like, okay, cool. He's going to approach from there with probably like a forehand or something and put it under the basket. Nate Doss screams as someone else is missing a putt on screen, and we have to go back and and replay it because it wasn't live. What we saw on the camera was not live, and we're getting better at that. But there are always ways to improve what we're doing.
And someone had asked about if we had any response to somebody had said Brody's comments or criticisms of the coverage. And I'll be the first to admit, I haven't seen whatever it was that he had said. Yeah, so if somebody wanted to update me or point me in that direction, I'd be curious to know what he had said.
I did see him say that live is undoubtedly better than post. He made that post on Twitter, and to each their own, obviously. Sure. And I'm glad he enjoys the live coverage, if that's what it is. And I saw Jomez responded with like, "Is it really that black and white?" And it's not, because there's a reason to have post production. There's a reason to have live. I've said it in so many places. I get zero drama out of post production, and I use it as a fact finding mission. I don't. Someone asked me who my favorite commentators were for post, and I said I don't know, because I mute them, all of them, and I watch it at 1.5 speed to get through and see the shots, because I want to see what happens. I don't care about what the people say for the most part. Just give me the golf, burn it into my eyes, and give me the idea, and move on.
I will. The one comment that I think I saw by the Pro Tour today, and it's kind of coming up here, where people were talking about more information about discs that are being thrown, and the Pro Tour
I did address that with
had
Jamie,
had made a post saying that they've made a very conscious decision to really just mention the overall types of discs as opposed to specific discs.
Oh, okay.
To mention that, he's throwing a putter here, he's throwing his mid, he's throwing his driver. Now, we've debated this. Check the tapes in the last 300 episodes. We've debated this before, and this could be said of post, and this can be said of live. There are some novelties, and that's just, I don't want to say it's murky water. It sounds like the Pro Tour has made the official decision. I'm no longer in the booth where I'm calling specific discs anyway, so this doesn't pertain to me as much as Nate, Val, and Jamie. However, if you're at a particular event, one could argue that when you're at the event presented by Airborne and Prodigy, that you have let's just say you have four non-Prodigy players on the second card during the second day. And here you are calling off all of or many of the specific discs that are being thrown that are non-Prodigy discs. You can then turn around and argue and say, well, Prodigy should have had players that made it to the lead card. I understand all of those arguments. I genuinely get it. Just like I was giving Dana a hard time a few minutes ago saying, hey, I'm calling out Discmania discs because I asked the players after the round if they would send me a list, and I told them, I said, I will do my best to incorporate that into my solo commentary. It feels kind of weird. I'm not being compensated in this case by anyone for the post-production this last weekend, and I'm calling out Prodigy discs, I'm calling out Innova discs, Discmania discs, Discraft, whatever, all of them. You guys probably want to see and hear that as much as you can. Some of you don't care. Some of you already know. And then is there any obligation on my part as a content producer, or if I did have sponsorship obligations? Those are all things. Those are all thoughts. So that's where I'm going to throw it on the table and leave it there. But I want you guys to know that does all those things factor in. It is not a black and white, cut and dry. Just like, and if you go to golf, I don't believe you hear anyone saying, "Oh, they'll say he's using a sand wedge or he's using such and such with such angle or pitch or whatever they're fancy." I don't think they call out.
They don't call it Titleist. They don't call out usually. And
well, that's his Titleist M77. From 2012 special edition series. I don't think they do that. I don't believe. So
one of the things that Mo likes to drive home when he's sitting here is like, try not. I know it sounds silly. Try not to make mistakes. No one tries.
Shoot, he did not send me that memo because
no one tries to make mistakes, but he gets really frustrated himself with like a spelling error on a graphic or things like that. That like,
well, now you're just calling him out. Ouch.
No, not at all.
Yeah, you are.
But I feel like Mo might get frustrated if Jamie Thomas. So it says, oh, that's Paige Pierce's Avenger SS, when really it was her Surge SS or something, and you know, because you guys are some of these people. You love golf so much, you know her bag. So ultimately, if we make a mistake doing it like that, we're going to get crucified. And on top of that, like the post production obviously has the advantage of asking the players after the fact, what'd you throw on all these shots? Everyone can answer. With us, we could ask them, what do you plan on throwing? But you walk up to a hole and there's a tailwind as opposed to a headwind. That could completely change it from a driver to a mid-range. And if, our commentators aren't eagle-eyed, and remember, they're watching it on a screen that's like this big because they have a quad screen that they might not notice that the yellow mid-range is a little different than the off-yellow driver. Another one of those things, it's like, man, we just, it's hard to do on the fly, and I get it that people love to hear it. And I understand that you want to do it, but just know that, again, your comments are heard, and there are reasons for why we do certain things. And I'm not saying it's not possible, because we saw Robert McCall at the GBO a couple of years ago. He being on site was much better because he could just literally walk out to the players on the hole and say, "Hey, can I take kind of look through your bag here and see what you're throwing?" And then he was very good about that, and he was very about all the discs that the players were throwing. He was very what's the word I'm looking for? Fair.
Fair and consistent
fair and
with
consistent.
Knowing everyone's bag, whether it was a trilogy-based bag or not.
Our guys have a little bit harder problem. You can try to reach out to guys on social media and they don't answer. And what if like just the DD guys answer and then nobody else does? And it just makes it difficult. So know that we hear you and we try to do our best always. Except sometimes when I try to mess things up.
Yeah, which you do well.
Oh,
you
God.
mess things up.
I hit the wrong button sometimes. It's so much fun to watch Mo.
Someone had asked about having a rangefinder or some of the specifics out there. We're seeing clearly an uptick in people using rangefinders. Those are generally now, it looks like the Bushnell rangefinders who have partnered up with the tour. Bushnell actually asked me last weekend at the DD Open. They said, "Hey, we've got one for you if you'd like to take it out and use it. Will you find value in this?" And I think I might work myself into finding value in it, but honestly, I really don't know that I would.
I could see maybe once a weekend have you like someone like the Simon shot. So Simon hits that, you could rangefinder that and know, oh, cool. The next time I check in, I'm going to say, oh, Simon, thanks to Bushnell, we know that that's a 212-foot throw-in.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great example. However, there has to be, in order for that to, I feel like some of those scenarios to happen, my check-ins, I'll call them my check-ins, if they're a little bit more, I don't want to say frequent. I'm not saying I need more camera time. I'm just saying it has to be a little bit more in the moment. Because if I come back to you and we're on hole 10, and that happened on hole 8, Simon throws that long one in. Spoiler, by the way. Simon throws that long one on 8, and then on hole 10, when I'm scheduled to do a check-in with you guys, for instance, and I say, oh, I used it. Is it as exciting to still give you that update? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But I did want to say, Bushnell did ask, and maybe when we get in a position where it's easy enough for me to have my hands on one for every round, it wouldn't hurt me to carry one along for some special instance or situation. It's just, I don't know that we check in with me frequently enough that having some of those numbers would be useful, but maybe they would. I guess we'll, there's only one way to find out. So, somebody thought I was hawking Bushnell, and call it what you will. They are a sponsor and a partner now of the tour. I think it's awesome that we have a large out of disc golf brand, non-disc golf brand is a better word, that's now shown interest and is partnering up with our sport and is working with us to get rangefinders and in feet as opposed to the yards or the meters that they come standard in. So I can't say enough. I think that's great. And you may be You may have some other rangefinder. I couldn't name another name brand. If you do, that's great. But I think it's cool right now that we have a large scale company that's supporting and part of our tour. So, and I've got some ideas. Maybe I could make some fun videos. Like, how far could I miss a putt from? Maybe I'll come out with my own Bushnell. Anyway, all right, guys. I think we're going to call the regular show, even though this already has felt like we've kind of chatted about other things we'd normally see in the after show. But nonetheless, I think we're going to call the regular show right now, and then we can head into the after show and talk about more things disc golf or non-disc golf related. Seems like we got a chatty board tonight, which we love to see and love to hear about.
Well, maybe we'll talk about Hamilton in the after show. How many times you've watched it?
Yeah. Well, just in Broadway, but at Broadway, that was all. All right, guys. We would have to not, unfortunately, we can't thank Niko. Niko didn't reply.
Ghosted.
So I'm sorry to those that are disappointed. We're sad that he didn't join us either. We didn't have him. But we thank Danamite for joining us. This has been podcast number 305. We're going to, of course, have some giveaways in the after show. We'll talk about Hamilton and other things disc golf and non-disc golf related when we get to the after show. We hope you guys will join us for that. Stay tuned. Get your questions all fired up. See if your super chat works from your IP address. It may have been blocked earlier, but now we can see if it works. We'd love for you to try it. And we'll go from there. So for Johnny V, myself, and Danamite, again, podcast 305. We'll see you in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 305 After Show.
Someone said Parsave is using like a Steadicam. Did you see that?
I
don't know.
They have a Joey.
That's enough.
They have a tamale.
They got a tamale.
That's all I know. I don't know. I don't know that they are. They have Joey on a throw, I believe, on the throw cam. I've seen Craig out there. They've got Jack out there. Chris. I think I've seen Jack with some kind of a large rig shoulder mount. Okay. I don't know if that's exactly to what degree of a Steadicam or steady stabilizer that is.
If they want a Steadicam vest and outfit, we got one.
Yeah.
They can buy from us real cheap.
Yeah, so I'm honestly I'm not sure what all of their cameras had. I don't think I saw all of them at one specific time out there this weekend, but I know they're upwards of 3 or 4 cameras for their productions, which obviously sounds awesome.
Are there Are they planning to be back on tour a little bit more now? Like, I know after last year there was some issues with the Pro Tour and they kind of fell off and went back to Minnesota. And kind of it sounded like at the time we're like, yeah, I think we're done with this, but you know, whatever. And then they did some local ones, and now like obviously with Minnesota, now they're coming over here to Wisconsin. I don't know. I really like the Parsave stuff. I think they do a really great job. Good graphics. Everyone loves the whole maps. And having more post-production crews, I think, is always a positive.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what their plan is for where they're scheduled to be. I think they're going to be here in Manitowoc this weekend.
Don't you talk to everybody on the course, though? Like, literally every single person. Don't you introduce yourself?
No. Some people run the other way when they see me, and I don't blame them. I mean, seriously, I'd run from me too with this beard. I believe Parsave is going to be here in Wisconsin this weekend. I do not know of their plans following that as to where they're going to be or what they're doing for sure. I do want to give them a huge shout out. They graciously gave me their raw drone footage that I used in the Disc Golf Guys productions this weekend, and they said, if you're willing to recognize us with a logo or something while using it, we're good with that. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's really appreciated that those guys give me those to use. So thank you to Parsave. You saw their logo up. I thank them profusely within the videos, but yeah. And thank you to everyone that was tuned in or watched any of the post-production that I decided to put out. That honestly was kind of on a whim. Just a few days before the event, I had talked to one of our friends, Dustin, and he loves playing golf and traveling and plays a ton of courses everywhere. That's usually his top focus and concern. And he said that he had the week off, so therefore he could join me in coming. And I said, well, coming to the event. And he said, well, let's see let's throw a camera on you and see how you do. And I feel like we had Disc Golf Filming 101 and 102 all as a crash course on Thursday night. And I showed him, I actually have a handful of clips where I showed him, don't do this, and don't do this. Whatever it was, a particular zoom or a pan or cutting the clip too early or cutting it too late, whatever the case might be. I kind of gave him a crash course. And I'll share it with you guys. When in doubt, zoom out, stay wide, whatever you need to do. I think a lot of people get zoom happy, and he absolutely took that to heart, almost to an extreme where he was very, very reluctant to zoom in during that first round. And then I saw his footage. This is the first round he's ever filmed. It was the threesome that we had out there on Friday. Shasta, Andrew Presnell, and another one, sorry. But we had him capture that card. And for his first time ever filming, he killed it. It was incredible. And then that's what sparked my interest at 9 o'clock. I'm like, this is good enough to use. I wasn't counting on that necessarily. No. And at 9 o'clock on Friday night, I'm like, this is good enough to use. Let's make a video. So spent the next 6, 8, 10 hours putting together the footage from the round, and we got it released on Saturday. And that, again, I can't say it enough, that's all due to Dustin. And then he sat there and watched me edit all of the footage. So he kind of got like an intro to editing as well, although that he was hands off of that. But he got a little quick intro to editing and how I assembled the round. And we repeated it on Saturday. And then on Sunday, of course, we drove home immediately following the event. I feel bad. He didn't get home till about 3 a.m, and he had to work at 7 and go to his regular job. And then yesterday, I got the footage all finally assembled and then got it released overnight last night. So that's what you guys saw. But thank you to Dustin is where this long-winded story is going. Thank you so much for just being an incredible quick learner. And I got to say, he was... regardless if it was his first time, I still feel like he was like a 980 rated cameraman, maybe even higher for his first weekend out, and just really, really gracious. So that's how you got 3 rounds of extra coverage that weren't otherwise planned on, and that was all part of what he had done. So thank you, and I can't say it enough. That's exactly where Patreon comes into play, is being allowed to go out there and do that because of the little extra support I get via Patreon. So, all right. And Shasta, I apologize. Yes, Shasta was the other one. And I did make a comment on Shasta shorts because they were great.
I didn't see them. What were they?
They were just, they were colorful.
Colorful shorts?
Just like Shasta's personality.
Of course. Shasta's
so
awesome.
Great to see. And you may see a little Shasta highlight. I worked with Disc Golf Comedy, who is very much partnered up and works with DGA. And so I think you're going to also see a little Shasta clip get released in the next day or so as well. So thank you to Disc Golf Comedy. So Trevor over there. So, all right.
Don't promote that guy. He reached out to me.
He's too nice. I can't not do it.
Which one? Shasta or Disc Golf Comedy?
Anyway, go on.
Disc Golf Comedy was bragging about his T-shirts he had made up, and I'm going to throw a little shade at him. Like, look at this. We got sweatshirts. We got hoodies. We got hoodies made up for our Patreon supporters now.
Doing it up big.
It's really comfy, too. I was kind of not surprised, but I was very happy with the result. So if you're part of the clothing level of the Patreon supporters, you should have this really nice light hoodie. And I ordered for myself a 2XL and an XL. And I thought, one of them probably can go to Terry. And I don't know which is which. If, the 2XL,
Probably not the XL these days.
You'll get there. And so then my wife looks at it. She says, "Oh, that looks really nice." She tried on the 2XL. She's like, "Oh, that's way too big for me." She tried on the XL. My wife's 6 foot, so she likes the length of the hoodie. She's like, "Oh, this fits pretty well." I was like, "Oh, well, there goes Terry's," because now I'm going to take the 2XL.
Yeah, that's great.
So you're out of luck, Terry.
Who cares how much of this company I own? I don't get any of my own clothing with,
that's right.
with logos on it. You just order whatever you need.
So yeah. You order from Miles anyway and have it printed on your own clothing. So anyway, so our clothing supporters should be getting this really nice hoodie. And I want to give a shout out to all our Patreon supporters that support us at any level, but obviously the clothing level, we love you the most, clearly.
Yeah, you're our favorite. Darren says, Johnny V, I'm offering to be the third guy in the box.
Oh, yeah.
I'll save in plane tickets, a smooth ride up, just 19 hours to Milwaukee.
That's not too bad. If I have my way, Darren, it probably won't be you because I don't know your experience, but
shut down.
I think I've said this before. My goal is to virtualize all this, so you don't have to be in the studio. So we don't have to have more people here than we need. That Mo can be on site, be watching the multi-view, see all the cameras, and just hopefully hit a button on his phone and say, hey John, let's go to this asset, let's go to this commercial, let's go to this thing, and that will all be communicated. So he can be wherever, if he wants to be in New York where he lives, or I think he said he's moving to Raleigh, or if he happens to be on site on the tour. We can have all this communication, and it can really just be me here doing what I'm doing, or maybe Gary if he wants. But even Gary doing graphics, I'm hoping he can log in remotely. So eventually my goal is to get a replay operator, just be able to dial into a system, boop, have it come up and say, all right, cool. And then when I want to get a replay, I hit a little button to some guy and say, or woman, and say, hey, give me that shot of Sarah Holcomb from 18 ASAP. And they can just queue it up and feed it to me. That's the goal. So you could save on some plane flights, although you're always welcome in the studio, buddy.
All right. As I'm reading a few of the... Darren says, Terry was talking about losing weight last year and eating right. Let's get back on that. Yeah, tell me about it.
I haven't had a soda all year. I had a craving for one today, and I was like, oh, I should get a Coke. And I didn't, but...
I'm just going to start doing Coke. Okay. Garrett Dupree says...
metabolism. Yeah, I like that idea.
Get me going. Terry, do you have a stash of the Innova DGPT disc with the basket stamp on the top and the stock stamp on the bottom you want to part with? That's funny you would ask that because it's very, very specific, and it's funny that I do have a box of them.
No, it's not. It's
no,
not
it is, because that was a very whimsical decision to buy some of those, and I feel like I have maybe some leopards and wraiths and destroyers that I got that if I'm understanding you correctly. Yeah. I don't know that I want to part with them, but I know I have some somewhere. Someone else whose name I cannot read, unfortunately, just had given a super chat, so thank you very much. F in the chat for Terry's hoodie. Oh, thank you. Chipping in so that I can get a hoodie with my own company name on it. I appreciate that.
Do you know how much Smashbox branded stuff you have that I don't?
The difference, though, just there is a minor difference. I paid for it all.
Why?
I've paid every branded item that's ever been produced from Smashbox, whether it's a disc or any clothing, has all come out of my own pocket.
Well, that's dumb. If
literally every single one in the last 6 years.
Like the shirt, yeah, pay for your own shirt. Yeah. But if you have it sent to Miles to be embroidered with a logo, that should be a company expense.
Every single item, and I'm also, and it's okay because to some degree, because when someone asks for then something of free, and I give it away or I sell it or whatever, I'm also the recipient of that. I'm the giver and the recipant of that. But everything
how it is.
Everything that's ever been branded with Smashbox. To be fair, if you want to check the books, I can promise you I'm not ahead.
I know.
I can promise you that. Yes, anything that's ever been branded has been paid for 100% by me.
I don't really care. That's fine. I know.
All right.
Just get a kick out of it.
Thank you. TJ does provide some insight. Says don't smoke crack via Lawrence Taylor.
We
appreciate that. And Tim says he's down 63 pounds on the slow carb diet. I love it, Tim. That is awesome.
Keep up the good work, buddy.
That's great to hear. Trace says he'd like to see some of my collection. Someday there will be. Where's Jackie Chan? Jackie is in Taiwan, and unfortunately, somebody said it earlier in the chat. I don't think we're going to see a lot of international disc golf or disc golf players moving outside of their region or their area in this year. I mean, that's just the hard reality of, I don't think a lot of us Americans are allowed.
We're not allowed to leave, and we're not letting people in. So
yeah. And that's not an immigration issue. That is certainly a COVID issue at this time. Ken Klima, I'm sure, is in Clearwater, Florida, as someone asked where he is. And I know we've kind of repeated this. Well, I don't know if we've repeated it, but the longstanding story, as far as I still know, is Klimo has had injuries with his hip and has not been in a position to be able to play. Is that exclusively why he's not playing? I don't know for sure. Of course, we saw him attempt, at the USDGC at one point, but he's just not in a position to be playing disc golf. And now, if he were, would he be out there playing in an Open or a Masters or Grand or whatever, any given division? I don't know. I would think that he would be, but I can't speak to that for sure. Sam's wondering if that's my daughter that's chiming in from the board. It very well could be. Kenzie, go to bed. I know you're up. You're probably watching. Go to bed. You're 9. All right. Where's Josh Anthon been, and why is he on the star team and Philo is not? I think that comes down to statistics and
history of play.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, I can't say I think. I think it comes down to the accomplishments and or finishes. And I know for a fact that Philo is disappointed that he's not on the star team. He's been out there grinding, and he's been there, and he, I think, had a year that was not of his typical quality last year. And I think that's ultimately what forced Innova's hand or decision to bump him from the star team for this year. And he has a lot to prove. He's told me and others that he wants to be rightfully back on that star team. And clearly we're not at any liberty to talk about what Innova owes to any given player, but I know from a personal standpoint, in talking to Philo, he wants to prove that he belongs on that star team and he wants to be there. Now, what Josh is doing, I'm not going to say I'm going to throw up my whole year to COVID, but I'm not second guessing or questioning where really anyone is or isn't right now. And I won't probably for all of 2020. I mean, somebody could say, well, Josh should really be out at such and such place. He's got 2 kids under the age of 6. He lives in California. I can't question what events he is or isn't competing in right now.
Personally, if it were solely my decision, I would put Philo on the star team. I think at this point he
should have Innova call you.
Innova's not going to call me. But just based on he's out there grinding and touring, and he's finishing relatively high in the standings, especially you want to argue even for his age. He's a Masters aged player who's still playing Open and finishing top 15, top 10 at times, and it would not surprise me if you had told me, oh yeah, he was put on the star team a week ago. I'd be like, oh cool, yeah,
sure.
Or if he's been on the star team for 6 years, it wouldn't shock me. It's one of those things where you kind of feel like that guy. I think kind of, I don't want to use the term deserves, but I think could be on the star team. And
of course,
and that's, as we know, that is clearly an Innova decision. They have their own metrics internally that they look at, and all we can do is say, or assume that they've communicated with Philo for whatever, and say, hey, maybe you have to hit these benchmarks, and then or he knows what benchmarks he has to hit, and so I'm not going to fault either side on that one.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those classic cases of I don't feel like I'm in a position to tell another company how they should be spending their money. Like, there's a lot of companies that spend a lot of money in a lot of ways that I don't agree with. I'm in no position to tell Innova. I can understand people's disappointment and maybe a frustration of sorts with Philo not having certain credentials of being on the star team right now. I know Philo's very disappointed that he's not there and that he wants to earn his way back on to being there. And as you could say, there's benchmarks and there's specific numbers, and then there's the feels. There's all of that gets included. What those conversations are all like with Philo and Innova, though, are just that. So we shall see, and it'd be great. I think I believe, and I do not know this for a fact. I believe though one of the significant upticks to the star team is it's not an unlimited travel stipend, but I know it's a substantial travel stipend that I think is granted it's either much larger or there's one versus none on the champion team. I'm not sure which it is, but I know travel stipend is a considerable factor from the champion to the star team. And they're not as concerned about things like discs and such. I can tell you that. Philo is absolutely an ambassador of disc golf. People asking about Legacy, Steve Rico, I know, and Bamba and Freddie and the boys out there still doing their thing out there in
Grinding
Legacy.
away.
What's that?
Grinding away.
So, there's an offline conversation somewhere.
Speaking of how we met Rico.
Yeah. Cody says, I'd be happy just to be on the Innova's DX team. If they only had one. Manufacturers build companies, players build brands. And Seth says Philo needs to be there. Maybe there should be a petition. I don't know if Innova would take to it.
If you feel strongly enough that Innova should put Philo on the star team, then reach out to Innova. Literally, follow Philo on social media. Comment a lot on his stuff. Tag Innova on that stuff. If you are that serious about it, and if there's a big enough groundswell, it will force Innova's hand. And then you could say that about any company. If you feel that Jordan Castro should be on whatever the top team for his sponsor, MVP is. Like, you have to, and I'm assuming he is, because I don't know what the team levels are for MVP, but you as followers and fans, you have a lot of power over that. And if you demand Philo discs, the more demand there are for those, the more likely he is probably to be seen like that. So, but please go ahead and do all of that.
I'm
Tag Terry too in every one of those posts.
Please. 100%. I'm not sure if we did answer your question. I'm going to have to scroll back up. As always, if you have questions here in the after show, please go ahead. Put them in the YouTube chat. That's what we follow along a little bit more closely. Johnny might see it if it's coming in from Facebook, but put it in the YouTube chat. And if there's something specific that I can answer for you or we can answer for you, we will.
I keep an eye on all the chats.
Seth says, have you looked at Grip's EQ team? It looks bad. We need more people that aren't white. Okay.
Yeah. That there's this past weekend, we saw the Disc Golf Pro Tour raise money for the NAACP in George Floyd's name. I think, I don't think that in and of itself is going to bring more diversity to our sport, but it shows that we care. I think, but there are things and that the Disc Golf Pro Tour is doing that is addressing diversity. They're having these open forums. Mm-hmm. They're having, there's open discussions. There's now, there was, school reach outs and stuff like that. And again, COVID killed a lot of that, but there are things that the Disc Golf Pro Tour is trying to do. And I give them so much credit for a lot of that. And, we've talked about it before, what's driving that? I mean, it's a lot of access to courses, Mm-hmm. We're not an urban sport yet. We until you can walk into a park and see like a little 3-hole course at in New York City or in downtown Chicago or in Los Angeles or Dallas or anything like that, like downtown. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that type of growth from that community or any other communities. And maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. Just like I feel about us on TV. Maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll continue to be the sport we are, and we'll just have to deal with that.
Yeah, and speaking of TV, a couple things. One, we saw that Ultra World had released an article or put out an article that talked a little bit, actually I should say talked extensively with the team over at Dynamic Discs, and I think they got a quote or two from Jonathan Gomez as well with regard to the CBS deal. I believe sometime in the next week or two, we will likely have Rusco follow up with us, also have a continued conversation about what we're seeing and hearing with that. Of course, the conversation about release being scheduled for sometime in August. We may or may not be closer to an actual specific date by the time we catch up with him, either way. But there was an article that talked about it, and someone had said just a moment ago that great hearing that Rusco and Didi had dropped 6 figures to get the 4 hours on CBS. I had learned that. I didn't feel comfortable sharing that, so to speak, ahead of time. But I did learn that when I was down there, that it was substantial. And of course, there was the specific buy with CBS, and then there was also the significant contribution or compensation is a better word, compensation to Jomez Pro for the production, and along with CCDG for the production of those videos. So great to see out there for sure. And I don't know if that conjures up more excitement or sympathy or frustration or any of those types of feelings when then people were very, very just very loud about not having post-production the next day, but then knowing that, it was due to the CBS situation, of course, and some of the restrictions with that, but then knowing that, a CCDG and a Jomez were getting compensated or are getting compensated in order to still make that. And again, I'm sure, we've seen plenty of mixed reactions and feelings to that, because some people feel like, well, you're taking post-production away from us for the weekend and we're not able to watch it the next day. And so they were very loud about that. And other people were saying, hey, there's live and I'm not worried about post-production because the bigger picture is that this is going to be ultimately on CBS in some form. So I saw both sides of that argument certainly taking place out there. Hot take that DD should have dropped that 6 figures to keep Paige Pierce.
I don't know if that would have done anything.
That may or may not have done it. I mean, if Paige felt It could have been more personal. It could have been more than just business or finances. I'm not saying that it was, but it could have been other factors than just a dollar figure that could have kept it short. And that could have went both ways. That could have been with the dynamic side of thinking, hey, we have a value that we'd like to place, that we feel like we want to place on you. And that could have been different from where Paige was and vice versa. So.
And Galactic Conqueror says it as well. Paige, it could have been other things like the more product development that she got, the customization of the discs. That's a lot harder for DD because they don't manufacture the plastic here in the States. It comes from Latitude. So having that tactile feel, I think that's worked out for her in that putter.
She's all right. She's doing quite well, of course, with it. Paige could be sponsored by Whammo and win her 7th and 8th titles still.
More than likely.
Anything's possible. Seth is saying that those that complained about the post need to understand that this is what this undergoing means. Yeah, I agree.
And as I said, shout out to Dee for literally putting their money where their mouth is and trying to grow the sport. Like they didn't have to take that undertaking. They didn't have to put that kind of money down, and yet they did because they want to see the sport grow. And clearly, that's for. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say that's for quote unquote selfish reasons because if the sport grows, their company grows. Mm-hmm. But that's anything, and I give them so much respect, and I love Rusco, and I think he's trying to do what's best for the sport and best for his company, and I hope it works out, and I hope we see some sort of dividends on it in long term. So I'm excited to see it. I literally am excited to see. It's the first time I've been excited to see post-production in a while. I'll say that.
Tim asks a great question and says, how many CBS viewers, although I don't know how much of those analytics will be shared with us after the fact, but how many CBS viewers would make it a good deal? And of course, that's wildly subjective, but
so hard to say. I mean,
I'm going to throw out a number in just as one reference point. Let's say an hour of or a full round of footage on Jomez gets 100,000 views, right? When you're looking at 100,000 people watch, the front and the back total.
Yep.
That are clearly 99.9 something percent disc golfers, probably either fringe or hardcore disc golfers. Mm-hmm. If we got 75,000, I'm just going to make up a number. Let's go 50,000 just for the sake of being halves. If we got 50,000 people that they said watched it on CBS, that only a fraction, let's say 5% of our disc golf community tunes into that. So if we got those 50,000 people plus 5% disc golfers, is that considered? Because those 50,000 weren't diehard disc golfers. 50,000 grandmas and grandparents and families and there's I'll use a funny word. There's a quality of consumer at that point. Mm-hmm. Like, what is the value of a brand new set of eyes as opposed to a diehard disc golfer?
Yeah, that's really tough. It feels so hard to say, but it feels like 50,000 wouldn't be worth it.
Okay.
And that's just literally a gut feeling. Maybe 100,000 feels better.
But this is all barring. We know nothing about.
I know nothing.
We know nothing about normal TV analytics.
Charlie actually was on last week talking a little bit about some of this and what they saw with Ultimate. I don't know. That is so hard to say what a successful venture is, because it might not be the number. Like you said, it might be the quality. You get one or two people who are diehard golf fans. Maybe they're golf course owners, and now we get 2 new courses out of that which
turn into majors, which turn into whatever.
It's so hard to push that domino and see where it falls. And maybe we have 2 more of the preserve, and I don't think we'll ever truly know.
Of course not. I mean,
unless,
there's no way to quantify.
Unless come next year, CBS comes at us and says, all right, boys, disc golf guys, we're interested. Let's roll. Let's roll with this. Let's figure something out. Unless that happens directly, I don't know if we're ever going to really see a true, this is a result of this.
Exactly. And that's why I say, to be able to quantify this is next to impossible. But taking another step and say, how many people watch the broadcast, one of the rounds, and then go to dynamicdisc.com and make a purchase? That would be very interesting number, and whether they'll share it or not. It would be interesting to see on August 29th when this airs. I'm making up a date, by the way. On August 29th, it airs. And then definitively, Jeremy Rusko and Dynamic Disc a day later can say, yep, it aired at 7 p.m. and from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., we had a major...
We saw a 20% increase in our sales.
Yeah, like an actual spike.
Normal.
That would be really cool. Of course, they don't owe it to us or to anyone else to share that if it did happen. Just think how quickly $100,000... and it exceeded the $100,000, but think how quickly you could potentially make up that $100,000 investment with the right amount of sales. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. No. I am clearly just throwing things up against the wall right now, but this might be a calculated gamble.
I don't want to sell this short by any means, but I kind of feel like this was the perfect year to do this. In that there was no GBO. Now, I don't know if this was originally planned for a GBO. That wasn't really clearly stated in the article. But Didi has always told us GBO is a loss leader for us. Mm-hmm. They lose money every year on the on the GBO. So if they can take that, and I'm sure they lost money on the DDO because very few of these companies are making money on these events, especially when there's no spectators to buy stuff. But maybe they could look at that and say, okay, we lost, we'll say average of $100,000 for the CBS thing. We normally lose $50,000 at GBO. We only lost $20,000 at DDO. So, we're actually up $30,000 from last year. So if we only put in another $70,000, they felt like it was a deal.
Like they're pot committed or
like
something.
They're pot committed almost. So maybe this was a good year for them to do that in that maybe they were losing less money from not having GBO. I don't know if any of those numbers ring out true, but it's one way to look at it that, heck, without having to do the GBO, it kind of maybe freed up cash that they wouldn't normally have had in another spot. I don't know. But either way, I'm really glad they did it, and I can't wait to have Jeremy on to address some of this stuff.
Just save all your budgetary questions.
Please, send your
P&L statement, save all of those types of questions for Rusko. We will
like the IRS, we're going to dig down deep and find out what's going on with their books.
We will find out everything. And Galactic Conqueror saying maybe that's exactly the metric that would be measured in terms of seeing disc sales or over that week-long period or whatever. I mean, I feel like that's just one metric. I mean, obviously, just overall web page views. Will we see an increase at the PDGA.com or any of the other potential sponsors that are seen during the broadcast? Those are all possibilities of ways that it could be measured. And you and I both know, no matter what one person is going to say, yes, that definitely means that campaign was a success. Somebody else is going to say, no, it's not, and here's why I know why. I mean, we're just never going to agree on it all. A quick, interesting note. I don't think it's a humble brag. I think it's just a flat out brag. Adam Zucker of CBS Sports, who has been involved and he was referenced as someone who's been a golfer and he golfs himself. He did a lot of the Worlds broadcast. He was one of the commentators and host during some of the old PDGA Worlds videos. If you recall, if you go back to your VHS tapes, folks, those are. Okay.
I don't think I put that together.
Yeah, he is, and he's been involved. On my post today, where I had shouted out and praised Paige for her work via Instagram. I think the wording was something like "Great content, man. I love what you're doing," and it came from him.
That's cool.
I'll take any compliments, but coming from a.
Did he tell you to wear a suit coat? Because I would tell. I always want.
No.
I always want my commentators to wear suit coats.
I mean,
No
I
one
could get
does.
into one.
I know.
Wow, yeah, that would be great on a day like this
Yeah.
weekend.
Oh.
Catch me out in the field, wearing a suit coat when it's like just under 99 degrees or so.
Hey, other sports have to do it.
Yeah. I don't think any other sports at that temperature would have their field commentators in sport coats.
I beg to differ.
I bet you they don't.
I beg to differ.
I bet you
look
the
at
most
if you look at
elaborate
football games, sideline reporters.
Nope.
They're wearing
shirt
some
and
sort
tie
of,
at most. They're not in a suit coat.
Not
in those temperatures.
I disagree. Now, I think that they could be in a shirt and tie, but I bet you there are sons that wear suit
No,
coats.
they're not.
I bet you they do.
You
I bet you they throw them on for the camera and take them off afterwards.
Nope.
I disagree.
Somebody find us an example. It's got to be I don't even know what the temperature threshold would be. But if it's 94 degrees and we're during the second week of NFL football and they go to someone on the field, do you think they're wearing a suit coat?
Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
I know. We'll find out. We'll keep an eye on the sports this week there this year and see if anyone does that.
All right. Ice packs under the suit. Dion says, Terry, could you get out of that suitcase? No, I'd be just like Chris Farley. I'd find a way out.
Jamie hasn't watched sports since the 50s. Whatever, maybe.
I know they wear them, but when it gets above a certain temperature, it'd be just stupid for them to be in one. I don't know why they would do that. Oh man, will Big Sexy be in ties doing commentary? Grip 6 ties. Will they be in ties? I thought you meant will they be tied to the commentary because they are doing it. Who knows? I think they set up kind of a studio of sorts at the Dynamic Disc Open and had a backdrop to it, and I don't recall what the backdrop was, or maybe they green screened it. I'm not sure, but I believe Big Germ.
I hope they didn't green screen it. That always looks a little.
Yeah, I'm not, and I don't know if it was if it was a dynamic disc background or what exactly that it was.
So.
I don't recall.
I was gonna say, for as much as Didi put into it, I hope they plug Didi a lot. I hope there's a Didi background. I hope we see.
I saw a
Dynamic
basket
Disc
at one point in the
commercials.
studio.
I hope they have baskets. I mean, I'm honestly almost a little surprised that it's Big Germ, that we didn't see a McCall in there.
Sure.
Like a McCall and Nate or something, or
sure,
just because
just the fact that it's two Innova sponsored players.
It's two Innova sponsored players. And I know they do a phenomenal job on post production stuff, but just the fact that Didi is such a big underwriter of this, that they didn't maybe push down their thumb a little bit and say, we would like Robert McCall, because I have a man crush on Mr. Robert McCall, but I think he's
get in line behind me.
I think he's one of the best in our sport at speaking.
Oh, I was going to say dressing and attire.
Well, that goes without saying. I figured speaking.
Yeah, he is.
And I think he could really, he would be one of those voices that I think could really do well in a situation like this. And maybe he does make an appearance. I don't know.
Yeah,
know.
that I'm not
We'll wait to see.
Yes, MC Hip Chase says, all good, but once disc golf is mainstream, which it will be, just like skateboarding is now, we will all be talking about the good old days.
Oh, dude, you haven't watched enough. We still talk about the good old days, and it's not big.
That's true.
But yeah, you're right, and that's.
Darren asked, when was I talking about Neko and the eye rolls? He was legit not happy throughout the round.
The final round?
Throughout the final round.
I don't blame him. It looked like he was going to lose. He couldn't birdie in the first 9 holes.
I specifically recall when a shot got thrown into the woods on the right, and he just turned around and just absolute just disbelief that it had just popped back out for him. It might have been Eagle or Simon.
Oh, it was two of them. It was Kelvin.
Yeah, it's Calvin and Eagle.
Maybe it was Kelvin and Eagle, because Simon crushed it.
Yeah, Simon put it way out there. The prior hole. It's so funny. I got my phone up. I was like, well, Simon's got 100 feet to go. Like, I don't need to get this up shot. And then I'm standing like 6.5 feet behind him, and he throws, and I'm just watching it go up and over, and I'm like, and I'm still like, oh, okay, well, that's a good shot. And then it crashes in. I'm like, Oh my gosh, I didn't pull up.
On that hole 8.
No, on hole 13.
Hole 13.
Down to the river's edge,
yes,
where Simon hit one from circle 9.
I was thinking. Okay, never mind. I was thinking. I was thinking hole 13 or 14, the one that we were just talking about before, where everyone goes OB left, because both Calvin and Eagle threw off to the right, went in the woods, and kicked
correct.
out.
No. I was saying he was frustrated to see that, and then 2 holes prior on 12 is when Simon threw that in, and Neko turned around. He was in awe.
Yeah,
but he was also, there was a hair of frustration and disgust, like,
what do I have to do?
That was what I was trying to convey to the world.
I have a hard time sympathizing with that. Like when any player drops down a bomb like that putt, phenomenal. Like that's just cool. That's skill. I can get the eye rolls when a player throws it into the swag,
straight into the woods,
and then it just pops out, and you're like, "Give me a effing break!"
Yeah.
Like, what do I have to do here to get one over on these guys? Because we saw it in the FPO. I think it was Paige Pierce that did that, and she busted in there. And it wasn't too far in there. Like it was a couple feet, but that must be pretty thick stuff in general to kick, because it kept kicking people out. But I can understand that. I can understand the frustration when you're up there with someone dropping a big putt on you. You're like, oh man. But I have a hard time faulting them. Like, oh cool, that's something I would love to do.
Yeah, and there were 1 or 2 other spots throughout the round that now escape me, where a shot happened. Hole 2. Somebody just flat out missed their line and went straight through. Went straight.
Was that Kelvin? Because Simon hit the.
I think it was Kelvin.
Yeah, because Simon hit the tree like way short.
Yeah, right away. Yep. And I think it was Simon.
I think Kelvin took the left.
You're correct in that. I think it was Kelvin. Flat out just missed the whole fairway and instead went through the tiniest gap in the world that you couldn't hit in 10 more tries, and then still put himself up there. And that was the second hole. And Niko's like, I mean, he had a genuine frustration about it. Just like, wow, it seemed like things were a little bit stacked against him at that point.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was so funny. And here's, again, pat ourselves on the back or give a plug for live.
Nope.
Hole 17, Neko. He throws it off to the left, the elevated basket.
Mm-hmm.
He walks up to his lie, we're all waiting. He's sitting there, and he's pumping, and he's pumping, and he's looking, and we're all like, he's going to go for this. Like, he needs the stroke. That's what we're all thinking. Like, he probably needs to get this one in order to keep up with these guys, because they're going to eagle the next hole. And he's pumping, and he's pumping, and he's going, and he's going. And then he gets really frustrated, stops, goes back to his bag, grabs a disc, and I'll say relatively quickly for Neko, pitches up, hits the thing, and it rolls away like 10 feet. 10 feet. Thankfully, he hits that. Post-production, you don't see any of that. You just watch him walk up and toss up. And then you see the kick. Like when he kicked up at the basket frustratedly. And I kind of think like people were commenting on the kick, but I'm like, you're losing some of the context of it. Like how frustrated he was that he had to lay up, because he spent so much time like thinking about it. I again, because I literally like burned through some of the Joe Miss footage just to catch some key points, and I was like, oh man, you're missing so much context in that shot. Like there was such the drama there, and I hearing all these people like, oh Neko, you hear him probably drop an F-bomb or something and kick up at that basket. And I saw some memes about the kick even, and I'm like, oh, you're missing all of that context. And it pains me a little bit to think about that. Obviously, as we know, Neko still turned out to win. So,
dude, don't spoil that.
I spoiled
it. Surge of people. Okay, sorry, I was just trying to get caught up here. Who was the loud crowd following FPO round 1 at the preserve? Seemed like the ladies were really bothered. Short answer is yes, they were, and rightfully so. There were a handful of people out there that were excited, but maybe clearly too excited, and just were skating that fine line of being overly excited along with being still like respectful and not obnoxious. There was. They were jump roping on that line, across that line, back and forth, and yeah, that's really all there was to that. But it was interesting to see it and hear it for myself. And again, those are the types of things, if I can, I'd like to report on, because it was definitely distracting. And but then there's a smile that comes on your face when somebody hits a long putt, and then they also, excitedly yell out. Then the question is it as accepted when someone's getting kind of ready to tee, and you hear someone yell, "Come on, Paige, you got this drive," and they yell it super loud, with enough time, but still it felt like overkill. So yeah, it's tough.
It is tough.
Please answer my Neko question. Sorry,
someone was asking if the other players noticed Niko's eye rolls.
I don't know that they did, because I'll say he was relatively kept to himself. He would maybe make the motion really for himself and or to his girlfriend. And something that I'm just trying to do a little bit more of is just read the players, and that goes hand in hand with the other question that was asked, which is, do the other players get bothered or annoyed or frustrated with any of Niko's, we'll say, timing? And I feel like every player that's played with him now is either played with him before and or kind of knows and expects it. And they don't seem to get frustrated, or they just hide it really well. You don't see anybody, huffing and puffing or doing anything of that nature. I may be sitting there wondering like what's going on, but I think all of them have kind of mentally prepared for some of that.
Right now we're watching the Neko final putt. This might be one of my favorite moments in the last couple years. Niko's girlfriend coming up to him right here. This right here, I think, is very much sports. It looks like any
big sporting event.
Any big sporting event where, the wife or the girlfriend comes up and, and celebrates with him. And I think that, to me, I was watching that and I was flipping. Literally, I'm like calling cameras out, like camera 3, camera 2, camera 1. It's like bouncing back and forth to get the best angle. And afterwards, I was like, wow, like that felt like a real emotional sports thing. And I was really happy that, that we got to show that. So it was pretty cool. And then, of course, I see you in the background like, not knowing that Neko won.
Here's my hot take on that.
Okay.
Are we going to see Ariana at more events?
Ooh, is she good luck? Niko's superstitious. We know this.
She's been at events before, so that's not entirely new. She has been at some events before. And I almost asked him about it during the final interview, which would have been great to talk to him tonight. But she's not at every event by any means. And I talked to her during round 2, and she just said, she's like, yeah, I'm just here to keep the peace. Just here to, I don't really talk to him or talk about what's going on. I'm just here to, keep things calm as best as I can.
Well, she did a pretty good job.
And, it was awesome. That was one thing that stuck out in my mind, is seeing Neko at dozens, if not hundreds of tournaments throughout the years. She's not typically there. So, will that become more common in the future? I don't know.
Well, let's do some Patreon giveaway. I think we've talked enough about Neko and his awesome win, and hopefully, maybe more to come, because people love to hate him, and some people, I think, hate to love him. But ultimately, I think he's a great personality for our sport. But let's move on to some fun giveaways. Terry Miller, we have a Patreon giveaway tonight, and let's move on that. What do you think? We have 194 people that are eligible for this particular giveaway tonight.
Getting at it.
If you would like to be eligible, you can sign up at patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, and for as little as $1 a month or as much as $10 a month, you can give us more than that. You can give us the $100 a month. We
ain't going to stop you.
I'm not going to slow you down. You buy our undying love. It's that simple.
We're that easy.
If you don't have
that cheap.
If you don't have a family and you'd like one, you can buy one. We're here for you. You know, we're here. I for enough money, I'll give you a call on Christmas, tell you how great you're doing, pat on the back, you know, whatever. You know, for enough money, I might come and tuck you in. We'll see. But ultimately,
He's done that.
They don't know usually. I sneak in after they go to sleep and tuck them in. It's creepy, but it's fun. Anyway, 194 patrons. We were going to give something away. Terry's going to dig deep into his
I got some
stash.
good stuff. Maybe some West Side action. How about? Wow, I'm going clever on this one, folks.
Whoa.
Neko, I believe, has been putting with a crown by West Side. I happen to have a stack of those, and
Cool.
yeah, let's give away a crown. I
crown someone.
think that. God, so clever, Johnny. I feel like that is the right thing to do, though. In even if West Side and Niko aren't represented tonight, we'll take it upon ourselves.
For us.
We appreciate what everyone's doing out there. So yes, how about a crown? We'll go to the winner. I just have to remember to get that out.
I will make a note of it. What number do we want to draw?
It's Niko's first. The preserves first.
Just going
number one.
Huh? Going number 1 through
Niko's-
194. We're going to do the first one. That is number 22. They were sorted by email address tonight. Number 22 is Blake Novosel. Congratulations.
That's a new name.
That is. Congratulations, Blake Novosel. We're happy to, hopefully you'll enjoy the crown. And maybe you can use it to, I don't know,
Win a preserve championship next year.
Win a preserve championship. Blake, if you're not winning the preserve championship next year with that crown,
You're going to have to double your Patreon.
so thanks a lot. Much appreciated to Blake Novosel.
Yes, very much appreciated, Blake. And if you even get at me quick enough, I could probably let you pick if you want a red, white, or blue one. I know I have stacks of them, actually, in working with West Side and Latitude on a project last year. So I would be glad to give you your choice if you get to me quick enough, and we can make that happen. Mike Cullerton's super excited for you. Says, yay, Blake. And yay it is. All right, as I'm moving up the list, Ray says, I've been sent by Brody to tell you to join his Discord. Okay, Ray, you tricked me that time. If I read that again, I'm going to be sending a marketing invoice over to there.
Ray, I was part of his Discord. I've muted it. I think I'm still on it, but I just muted it. I got pinged too many times. It was kind of annoying to me.
And ping just is a notification.
It's a notification on my phone because you can tag everybody in order to let people know important things. Like, hey, the Brody pink disc is going on sale at 2:00 and stuff like that. And I think they had it set to, I don't know if it was any tweet or whatnot, but the first, and I was one of the early ones in there, and I was kind of like, ooh, that's a lot. So I'm just going to mute it for now. I'll go back in at some point and peek around, but there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of people. It's a good community from what I can tell. So if you're interested in Discraft or Brody or Paul, I think they all kind of peek in on there. We did see this week, speaking of a little bit about media, we saw Hannah Macbeth made a post on Twitter that she's starting up a new podcast dedicated to FPO coverage. And I'll be curious to hear that. Subscribe to another podcast on my feed and get on that. So Hannah says she thinks that FBO can be exciting even if Paige is dominating, which
yeah, of course.
I think she can.
If you're clever enough, I think you can. Dan, real quickly, said, I was walking with you for that round. Terry, I spoke to Paige later. She said she didn't have any hard feelings, just wanted it to stop in that moment. She was really gracious about it. I agree with that sentiment 100%. Again, there were a few players or a few people out there that were just a little too overexcited and anxious and rowdy, and our players did handle it, I feel like, very graciously and as politely as they could have. Yeah. But that is good to note for sure. And I saw one other comment that I did want to address quickly. Ray said our camera guy should have gone in the water with Niko for the underwater shots.
I told him. I told our cameraman.
Stay committed.
I said, if you're not in there, you're fired. And he didn't get in there. And guess what? He's not working this week. He'll work in 3 weeks, though. Because we really love
Thomas.
I think I told it to Trent.
Coming in from Norway. I wish I knew hello in Norwegian, but good to see you, Thomas. Thanks for joining us as we're going to be closing things out here in just a few moments.
Sam says, if Brody is successful, will we see more Ultimate players come and play disc golf? No. I mean, yeah,
more might dabble in it,
but it could more
or come over.
Yeah, I mean, Brody is
There won't be less.
No, there's not going to be any less. So, well, maybe there will be. We don't know technically. We haven't seen a casually coming and playing. Now, question: will they play professionally? I don't know. Like, it's disc golf and Ultimate. They're not too dissimilar, but it's throwing discs. Can you easily, we've seen that Brody is, I won't say have a problem, but it's not as easy to go from a regular Ultimate lid to a golf disc, and it takes him. He's still working on it. He's still getting, he's still only like a 970 rated player probably right now, or 980.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it.
I mean, I know he's been throwing up some pretty good rounds lately, but it's gonna take some time.
Terry, who did you have for round 3 coverage? Oh, thanks for bringing that up. Funny you ask. No. Round 3, which was released today, which I understand there's a little deflation. I mean, we were on the 4th card. There was still some really great play, and I did the solo commentary so that we could get it out right away or as quickly as I could after the drive home. That ended up being Philo Brathwaite, Anthony Barella, Colin Bailey, and Kyle Klein. So Kyle's 18, Colin's 24, Barella I think is 20, and then Philo who's a little bit their elder. So spoiler alert, there's some really solid golf in there. So I hope you enjoy it.
Galactic says he agrees from what he's seen. I don't see many top Ultimate players becoming top disc golfers.
Sure.
I think the problem is if you're a top Ultimate player, you're probably playing there until you're 25, 27, 30.
Yeah.
And by then, I think, I hate to say it, but you're probably too old to turn around and become a top disc golfer without a ton of practice. Now, as we're seeing, our sport is becoming younger and younger. Look at the kids who are coming in, and Kyle Klein's a perfect example. Mm-hmm. Eagle McMahon, Simon Lizotte was young. Like, you almost, in order to get a leg in on this sport, you kind of have to, it feels like, start sooner and sooner, or maybe pick it up in your early 20s. I feel like if once you hit 27, you're probably at that point, it's almost too late to join the sport and become a top player. Not say it can't happen.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm saying it feels like you're
like
already,
Johnny McRae.
You're already behind. Well, Johnny McRae's been playing since he was 18, probably 16.
Has he?
He's been playing a long time.
I know he's been playing a long time. I don't know if it was quite that young.
Well, either way, he's been playing a long time. And again, not saying you can't be good when you're older, but to be a top player in the pro division, not bloody likely.
Yeah, even with an Australian reference in there.
That's right.
Or is that necessarily Australian?
I don't think it's Australian.
Or is that British?
British more, but
Darren says 27 is a cutoff for a lot of things. That is certainly true. And yes, it would be cool to see MKBHD play. I'm sure he's dabbled in it by now. I don't know if he's ever talked about it necessarily. I'm sure I would assume that he has. He would be another huge influencer if he were to take it a little bit more serious, or if he were to get into it. And I just think with where he lives, I couldn't, unfortunately, courses aren't easily accessible out, in New York or Jersey or wherever he is. I don't know that courses would be as easily accessible for him. Just like any other big YouTuber, if you live in New York, unfortunately, there's not a course real close to you if you live somewhere in New York City. All right. There was one other quick thing.
Let's wrap this up.
Oh, Andrew Brown was the other quick example I was going to say. Continue to watch for him. He's out of Madison, Wisconsin area. He's now
pop up in the leaderboard.
I don't know if he's 10-10, 10-20. I don't know that he's going to get to that 10-30 or 10-40 range. But definitely a guy with solid game. You watch him throw. You definitely know he's played Ultimate, but he's clearly putting all the skills together to also come out and be, like I said, I think he might be 10-10-ish rated, a very solid player from the Ultimate field. So,
and let me be clear. I think if you play Ultimate in like high school or maybe college, and right after college you jump into disc golf, you're still only 21, 22. I'm talking like these top guys that are probably playing Ultimate into their mid to late 20s, that it's just hard to dedicate yourself to 2 sports. So
what if we could just get Deion Sanders or Bo Jackson?
I mean
they were
Bo knows.
Some classic 2-sport athletes.
True.
We need them. All right, on that note, as if the Milli Vanilli reference to open the show wasn't enough, we'll give you a little Bo Jackson to close it out.
That's what we do,
If
man.
we're not nostalgia, I don't know what is. So for Johnny V, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, this has been podcast number 305 After Show. Wow, exactly 3 hours on the minute, on the dot. Thank you guys for joining us. We love you. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.